All right, man. We are live.
Two beards and a clean-shaven man walk into a bar.
Yeah,
only
what's the
gonna be
name of
funny
that
to
bar?
people that are
Oil
watching.
Can Harry's, man. Let's go.
Yeah.
We're kind of the perfect setup. You guys ever play that? What's that game? Guess Who? Where your kid has like 20 mix of men and women. They got to ask a question, and you go down to like who the final one is.
Yeah.
We always use like glasses, beard, things in their ears.
I feel like I'm just a bear at this point.
Rar.
And I had so
Rar.
many meetings.
You should
especially
grow
on-
your beard out, man. Where's your beard?
Well, so first of all, for our viewers that are stacking up, let me post up. If you guys don't already have it, this is the official bingo card for the. Hold on one second. Yeah, baby.
I haven't seen this yet.
Oh, well, come here and show everybody.
We talked about it a little bit earlier.
Come here and show everybody. Kyler has a desk pet.
Let me see.
All right.
Ooh. Look at that. It's so
Yeah.
little.
So little.
Is that a water on?
Pretty cool. Okay, so I'm looking at the bingo card right now, and I feel like there's going to be some problems with this. So one, the I'm speaking only. I mean, this was kind of her technique back when the microphones would stay on.
Right.
So, she really kind of perfected this when she was a senator. So, typically they would have someone from the opposition party.
Excuse me, I'm speaking. I'm speaking now.
I'm speaking. And she would do this. I'm speaking, and then she would nod, like, you must also acknowledge I'm speaking, right? And she would also say, the other one that she popularized was, I'm reclaiming my time. I'm reclaiming my time. So you'd ask this super leading question. It's like, so why is it that you don't have the decency to admit such and such, whatever? And then the person would be like, what are you talking about? Admit that. That's not true. I'm going to reclaim my time. I'm reclaiming my time. And then, if they said, but wait, you asked me a question. I'm speaking. So if they don't have the microphone ability to overlap, I feel like that one's not going to work. Perfectly innocent, maybe. Weird, probably weird will happen. I have a feeling she's going to have to bring up Project 2025. Free IVF. Did he come out with that one? Is that one of his?
He's the one that came out with it first.
That's
she
his, right?
copied him. Yeah.
Okay. Childless cat ladies. Well, in Springfield, Ohio, the childless cat ladies may be turning against Harris. So we'll see.
They're turning against
What
her.
are your thoughts?
Following that in Springfield?
The Haitians.
So here's the thing. One side says that this is a hoax. This never happened. It's not real. These are just right-wing talking points. But sometimes right-wing talking points turn out to be true. So I don't know.
Sometimes they're funded by Russians. So that was an interesting story this week.
True. We also have some video. There's like some video out there of stuff, or like people that are like photos of people holding like upside down, like the goose that would be in your park, your city park. It's like decorative waterfowl, and they're like, hey, it's good eating. So like people take them. People supposedly their pets are being taken and eaten. So I don't know. Like, I mean, you can do all sorts of mean stuff to people, but you can't. I mean, you come after the childless cat lady's pets, and that's that. But anyway, it may all not be real.
Hold on one second. I got an issue with the little person. Give me a minute.
Okay.
Russell, I'm going to do a cross bet to you. I'm going to tell you there's not going to be any comment regarding childless cat ladies today.
Oh, okay. Do you have any in here that you think for sure is going to happen?
Excuse me. No question about it.
No, but how? The other, they're going to be muted while the other person's talking.
That's a good point, but
you think it's going to happen anyway, huh?
I think it's going to happen anyway. I'm also January 6th is a for sure.
January 6th probably.
Hunter Biden, Russia for sure.
You think so?
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna guarantee a new nickname.
I've seen some of the ones that are going around right wing. The ones that are too right wing for Twitter, some of the stuff that they've been calling her, and it's not repeatable. But kind of entertaining, right? That they would go there. Yeah, I think the I'm looking at this. I think for sure she's going to bring up Project 2025. Like I'm almost completely convinced that was going to happen. I think he will probably bring up drug prices. I think he'll bring up drug prices.
She'll definitely take a shot at him being a convicted felon.
Oh yeah, certainly.
Although I don't know if she'll say the words convicted felon.
But it'll be like, well, I'm standing here with a criminal kind of thing. That kind of stuff. Is this really going to be worth me not watching Mindhunter? Is it a real?
Yeah, Caress. I mean, I can't make any representations here, man. I mean, just you got to take your risk with the rest of us. So
Mindhunter is also a risk. Could be a bad episode. You never know. So here's one thing. I'll make one prediction. I think ABC, the debate is going to be very fair. And I'm saying that because CNN set a very high standard with the last one between Trump and Biden. It was very fairly done. Everything was done like completely above board. So I have a feeling ABC doesn't want to look bad next to CNN. And so they will also do a good job. I think that will happen. I'll be very surprised if ABC starts trying to like live fact check one of the candidates or something like that. That would be really weird. I know I just said weird. Do I get to click? No, they have to say
it. Is that a bingo card? It didn't count. You said it. Yeah.
I said it. Okay.
All right. Hey, question. Before we get started here, I just want to point out for the viewers at home, explain what's happening with the bingo card, Eric, and explain what you've got to have next to you to make that happen.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do this here. Let's go ahead and share that up in here. Okay. So this is on Axios. I shared the link on the YouTube channel. It's also on the Facebook event. But if you, for whatever reason, I don't know if you're watching it somewhere else, then you got to go to Axios, Google presidential bingo. And so basically every time you reload this page, it'll put these in a different order so everybody can kind of, play their own game. So
don't reload it. Once you have it up and you start clicking stuff,
right.
Don't reload it.
Right. So, and it's interactive. So basically you can, kind of, run your own bingo game basically as we're going. And then Dan and I also saw a drinking game on, oh, excuse me a minute. Yes, Brooks. That's right. 5 + 1 is 6. That is right. Wow, you're smarter than some people in politics. So we came up with a drinking game, and I opted to go with a bottle of private label Hamadi wine here. And I just opened it, and so you can see kind of where we're at. We'll see where we are at the end of the debate. I'm gambling on all the way down. Oh, Dan upgraded me. What is that? What's the second one? I see Jameson, and is that Sriracha?
No, sake.
Oh, sake.
This is Eric. I just want to bring you up to this. Like, I think when you're younger, you tend to go for the hot sakes. You do the sake bombs. As you get older and more refined, you want to go with the cold, unfiltered sake, right? It's got that little cloudy thing going to it. Mm-hmm. This is the good stuff.
As you age, as your palate gets more refined, your sake gets less refined.
Yeah, that'll be the enjoyment of the evening.
I want sake.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Sake to me. Hey, someone posted, Debbie said, the border, inflation, jobs, national security. Oh, talking about the bingo. Are that the things they're going to talk about these things? Or are they going to deflect with the other crap? And that is, we don't know. We have no idea. I'm sure they're going to be asked on all these, especially since normally I think you've got, I think it's typical to do 2 or 3 debates, one sort of a general one specifically on domestic policy, and then one specifically on foreign policy. And I think we're only getting won for sure this time. I don't know. I think this is one of those whoever does poorly will want to go again, maybe. A do-over. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was just we were just talking about this earlier. This may be the only presidential debate of this cycle. I was listening to a couple of commentators. She's got very little incentive to participate in anymore since the press has given her such a cushy ride. I mean, if I were her, I wouldn't do any. I mean, why bother?
I think. Well,
it's kind of like Trump skipping all of the primary debates. I mean, he's like, dude, these people are all idiots. And from her end, I mean, why bother, dude?
Well, I think the problem though is that I think that particular strategy is I think we've already hit the expiration on it. You saw CNN digging through her 2019. I mean, CNN. I mean, they're not exactly a Trump-friendly network. They were going through her 2019 policy positions and basically just like, this is so extreme. I don't even know what's going on. That kind of thing. And it's like, if CNN, everybody else is like, well, we don't know. We reached out to the campaign. They refused to answer us. And so, I mean, this is all we got. And you have that kind of impression out there. It's not just like, oh, she's running a brat campaign, the DNC, woo, but instead it's like, nobody knows what she's doing. She won't talk to anybody.
Well, she apparently did get serious today. They did upload some, looks like ChatGPT formatted policy positions and on her website, which before her website, all it had was merch. And it was funny because all of my Republican friends are, have been like, infuriated. Oh, she won't even say what she stands for. I'm like, dude, last cycle, the Republican Party didn't even bother putting out a platform. They just said, hey, whatever Trump says, that's what we're for. Literally that was the Republican Party platform 4 years ago.
I thought the platform was just a duplication. Like whatever it was we said in 2016, Xerox that. I don't think it was. Yeah, I think it was just like a duplication of the 2016 one.
We're not even going to bother. Well, anyway, but from her standpoint too, I have to give some credit to my right wing friends because she is all over the map. Like I'm going to be fascinated to see. She was against fracking. Now she's for fracking. She was again. You go down a whole list of stuff. She's completely on the other side of it, which, historically, you do have to run to the fringe of your party to get the nomination. So you are more extreme during your primary, and then you kind of run back towards the center. I can't remember I think maybe it was Nixon that made that joke first, comparing it to some football slant, route or something, where you go out here and then come back over here.
Juke.
Yeah, exactly. But she is so, they were saying that Tim Walz apparently can't give interviews on his own because he has no idea what the position of the campaign actually is.
Yeah.
On any given issue.
Well, and I think the you're talking about you said Nixon said that first or something.
I don't know. I can't remember. It's old though.
If you look at how that's been done in the past, usually it's a question of emphasis. So it's like, okay, here are the things I want to talk about when I'm talking to my party base. And I'm going to hype those things up. And the stuff over here that's not really that popular for them, I'm not going to talk about. And then as we shift into the general election, I'm going to still keep those things, but I'm not going to emphasize as much. Now I'm going to talk about these other things that are sort of compromised. Okay, everybody can get on board with this. I'm a moderate, right? But it's not that they go back and they say, the stuff that I said a month ago,
psych,
that's all false. Actually, I never said it. What are you talking about? I never said that. Who said that?
Well, I don't know. I remember Mitt Romney.
That I think is a little more rare.
I remember Mitt Romney doing that when he ran for president in what was that, 2012? When he was governor of Massachusetts, he was pro-life, pro-universal health care, you go down a whole list. And then when he started running, it was like, oh, no. Now I'm a religious conservative, so I'm anti-abortion. And whatever.
So Romney changes from one election to the next. But if you look at Obama, for example, I don't think you see Obama shifting his actual positions between the primary and the general. Hey, nice shirt.
Against gay marriage, for gay marriage.
No, he was never. He
never actually came out
for gay marriage while running for office. So that was not a flip flop. in between the primary and the general. So I think that's usually kind of an emphasis question, but to just come out and just completely flip all of your views, I don't know, it just seems so weak.
It is pretty whack. I see Dan's shirt over there. We got those shirts on election night in 2008. We were in Austin. We crashed the DNC's watch party in Austin, Texas, and they were giving out Obama T-shirts.
Oh,
Obama's my homeboy.
I bet that was an amazing party.
People were in tears. I mean, it was.
That's the Driscoll, right? Driscoll flat.
Yep. I will never forget that night because I mean, whether you were Republican or Democrat or whatever, I mean, like Obama, that first time, you know, I mean, he was fresh off that, you know, there is no red America, blue America, we're the United States of America, you know, and, you know, first black man. I mean, like, dude, even Republicans I know were, you know, like, I mean, they weren't excited to have Obama as president, but they were like, everybody felt a shared sense of accomplishment that we were like, okay, we checked that race box.
Yeah. There was on my street, there was an old man who would walk every morning, walk with a cane, you know, very slowly, just an old man getting out in the morning, doing his little exercise, and old black man. And the day after that Wednesday, the day after Obama was elected, he was out on his walk, no cane, full military uniform.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, time to feel proud of your country. So I don't know. I love that he was so inspiring for so many people.
I mean, for Michelle, that was the first time in her adult life she could remember being proud of her country. I remember.
Oh yeah, that is an odd thing to say. Big Mike says some weird stuff from time to time.
Big Mike. Oh jeez. I mean, it's a far cry from calling your country being run by losers and idiots and we're a failure and everything. I mean, like, so it's not quite that bad. But
hey, by the way, a little side note to have some fun today. So one of our friends that are on right now, Jamie Lynn Holland. I don't know if you remember Jamie. Jamie was the one that was on the cover of Time magazine years ago for attachment parenting, right? She was on the cover of Time.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Really?
What's up, Jamie?
Her son Aram. Yeah, she's on right now. She's listening in. So
I saw that.
Comments on there, but she's big time celebrity, and not only that, but she is very important to today's deal because Trump called her out specifically, and has done so in the past. So Jamie, we definitely want to hear your feedback as we kind of go through this. She says hello.
Wait, so what did Trump call her out about?
Jamie, what did you get called out on? I believe it had to do with the attachment parenting that she's spoken for a lot, you know, over the years.
Well, that was a controversial cover. I mean,
this was the "Are You Mom Enough" cover.
Oh, he tweeted and called her disgusting. She said,
"Disgusting,
disgusting."
You almost have to take that as a badge of pride at some point.
I think you really do.
Trust me, yeah. She does. She takes it as
she says, "Yeah, it was." Good for you, girl.
She's a badass, man. Don't mess with Jamie. Actually, just said congratulations to Jamie too. She had another baby just within the last couple months. So congratulations, Jamie.
That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Congrats. Just in time for the meltdown.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel kind of sad with my kids graduating now. my oldest is a senior in high school, and it's like, yeah, sorry about the economy you're graduating into.
Right.
Our bad, maybe. I don't know. I kind of feel like us Gen Xers, like baby boomers are still in charge. We never got a chance to fix it.
Yeah, this none of this was our fault. I mean, we've all just been bitching from the sidelines, like these boomers.
We're just
I'll tell you what.
Again ignored. You know.
Yet again ignored. Yeah, it's up to us to just figure this out again. You know, it's so funny too. Like, I mean, one thing that our kids may never have to worry. I mean, this could be the last election that we'll all have to vote in, as Trump said. So, could just be this might be it.
I've heard a theory that
one less thing on our plates.
I've heard a theory we're not going to vote in this one either. So the theory is Biden resigns for some reason or is forced out. Harris takes the presidency, and then there's
all this the election.
Well, yeah, well, because something happens with Ukraine and Russia to where we're drawn in. Now it's boots on the ground, and we don't want to, because of the amount of Russian influence there's been, and our politics. We can't have an election right now. It's an emergency, and then we just have emergency powers forever. That's that.
Interesting.
I've heard that
Okay.
one. That's pretty dramatic. I don't think we've got. I mean, it's what, 55 days? I mean, okay, how close is it? Something like that. 60 days, 55 days, something like that.
Is it that close? Well, yeah. What is it? November 9th or November 7th? I mean, yeah, less than 2 months.
Wow.
That is nuts. Look at all these. Michelle says, "Nope, Trump will win." Yeah,
Maybe he does.
That's
but will
that's
he?
my friend. That's my friend Big Eagle, Michelle. Man, what's up, Michelle? She's a huge Trump fan. She loves Trump.
But will they let him take the office?
Well, it's interesting, dude. I was listening to this guy on a podcast, Eric Weinstein. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. But
I started it. You sent me the link. I'm like 2 minutes in. I barely started, but
this guy's really interesting, man. I mean, he's never voted Republican in his life. He's like lifelong Democrat, and he used to work with Peter. He's so funny. He's like, he used to work with Peter Thiel. So of course everybody thought he was a Republican, but then he was something else. Everybody knew he was a Democrat. Whatever. I mean, it's just like it's so funny. He's like, for people that like to think for themselves, he's like, it's I mean, I'm an independent person. But anyway, he's very analytical, and he was just talking through some different scenarios, and he was like, there's a sizable faction of people in the here we go, man. Here we go.
Is it happening?
Should we turn on the...
Let's go.
Let's
game time, guys. Kickoff is coming up right now.
Donald Trump. We will soon be a great nation again.
Too late.
Historic.
Let's go.
The ABC News presidential
This is like
debate.
WWE SmackDown.
David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
And he's been on SmackDown.
Yeah, and he's
Good
been on
evening. I'm
SmackDown.
David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential
Oh, those are
debate.
two
We want to
attractive
welcome
anchors.
viewers watching on ABC and around the
They're
world.
put
Not my
together.
type, but
Vice
okay.
President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's
Unprecedented.
meeting could be the most consequential
They
event
say
of their
this
campaign.
presidency for
Election
race?
Day, now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st.
For first time in
course,
front
that
of the
decision
press.
followed his debate against
Months.
President Donald Trump in June.
6 weeks.
Exciting.
Since then, this
Good for
race
her.
has taken on
No
an
time.
entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to
Maybe.
answer questions.
Donna
And this
Brazile
is the
was
clock.
supposedly.
That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals,
Yeah.
and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution
No
Center. This is
notes.
an intimate setting for
I don't
2
know about
candidates who have
No
never
notes,
met.
no audience.
President Trump won the
Hope you're
coin
hungry for
toss.
some
He
word
chose to
salad.
deliver the final closing statement of the
You know,
evening.
that's what I had
Vice
for dinner.
President Harris selected the podium
Nom,
to
nom,
the
nom.
right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
All right, very
Shake
nice.
hands or no?
No,
Let's-
they're not going
no,
to.
No,
No shake?
way. No.
She's going for it.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Shots
Good
fired
evening.
early.
We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get
maybe
started.
it's like some Jedi
I want to
mind
begin
game.
tonight
you
with
know?
the issue.
Yeah,
that
she's trying to get in his head
is
already.
their number one issue, and that is
She's
the
winning
economy
already.
and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
Great question.
So I was raised as a middle class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why
all
I
three.
imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy.
Why
'Cause
didn't
here's
you
the
do it
thing.
earlier?
We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a
I really hate
tax
it when
cut
the
for
questions
those
don't get
families of
answered.
$6,000, which is the
You
largest
hate what?
child
When
tax
the
credit that
questions
we have
don't get
given in a
answered.
long time,
They just
Yeah,
so
avoid
I
that
the
know.
those young
questions.
families can afford to buy a crib, buy a
She
car
is nervous,
seat, buy
Debbie.
clothes for their
The
children.
man's a terror.
My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy.
I'll take it.
My
I
opponent,
like
on the
that
other
a
hand,
lot.
his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has
Pocket
a plan that I
change.
call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
The backs
President
of
Trump,
them.
I'll give you 2 minutes.
I'm guessing the answer to that
First
is
of all,
no.
I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries.
We had
have
tariffs, by the way,
inflation
on
like
your
very
bingo
few
card.
people have ever seen before. Probably
Yeah,
the
I don't
worst
have
in
it
our
on my.
nation's
I do have
history.
inflation blame
We
game. I'm
were
gonna go ahead
at
and click that one.
21%, but that's being generous because many things are
Yeah, why
50,
not?
60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African
Say
Americans and
black jobs.
Hispanics,
Black jobs.
and
Black
also
jobs.
unions. Unions are going to be affected very
I was so
soon.
close.
And you
so
see
close.
what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would
What
like to
about
let
the better
Vice
off
President
4 years
Harris
ago? That was a
respond
really
on
good premise.
Well, I'd
close.
love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression.
Nelia's
Donald
in the
Trump
house. What's
left
up,
us
Nelia?
the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left
Donald Trump
us
caused
the
COVID.
worst attack
I
on
knew
our
it.
democracy
It was him all
since the
along.
Civil
Gotta take the mask
War.
off.
And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old
No, it
tired
wasn't COVID.
playbook.
It
Oh,
was
A
same
bunch
old.
of lies,
Same old.
grievances,
Yep.
and
Same
name
old.
calling.
It's good.
Same
What
old.
you're going to hear tonight
I'm
is
feeling
a
strong here.
detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025.
Project
that the
2025.
former president
Project
intends on
2025. Let's go.
implementing if elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas. I guess some good,
I
some
don't want to be
bad.
able to say I
But
know
it
what's in
makes
it.
no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody
good
knows I'm an
people,
open
there's
book.
some bad
Everybody
people.
knows what I'm going to do. Cut
Good people on
taxes
both
very
sides.
substantially
Good people on both
and
sides of
create
that
a
one.
great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me
ventilated the
credit for a
world.
lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with
You know
the
what that makes
pandemic.
us?
But the only
Ventilators.
jobs they got were bounce back
Ventilators.
jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best
Yeah, you said that
economists in
before.
our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton
got him
School
there.
has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described
Is that explode in a
his
good way?
economic plan as something that
Explosive
would
growth?
increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite
But I
a
thought
recession.
deficits don't
You
matter.
just have to look
Mo-
at
modern
where
monetary
we are
policy.
and
Like,
where
why
we
are you-
stand on the
why are you
issues.
yelling
And
about
I'd
a deficit?
invite you to know that
It's like
Donald
right-wing
Trump
talking
actually
points, lady.
has no plan for you because he is more interested in
I like how
defending
they
himself
made them the
than
same
he is
height
in
on the
looking out
TV
for
here.
you.
She's like
Mhm.
5'2". He's like 6'5" or something, right?
I went to the Wharton School of Finance.
Hair dye
and
job.
many of
Robbie,
those
I think
professors,
hers
the
is
top
better. It's
professors,
got a nice
think
kind
my
of
plan
texture
is
and
a
layering.
brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan
Yeah.
that's going to
Shiny.
bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our
Blackjack
country.
jobs.
And just to finish
Ah.
off, she
Almost.
doesn't have
Say
a
it.
plan. She copied
Wait, I've got
Biden's
tariffs.
plan,
We did talk
and
about
it's
tariffs.
like 4
Oh, yeah.
sentences.
Okay.
Like
got
run,
tariffs.
spot, run.
Yeah, tariffs.
4
I didn't click
sentences
it
that are
earlier.
just, oh, we'll
Did
try
it?
and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice
Drill,
President brought
baby,
up
drill.
your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently
It's
said
not
that
a
you might
national
double your
sales
plan,
tax.
imposing
What the hell are you
tariffs up to
talking about, bro?
20% on goods
That's what
coming into
her
this country.
campaign calls it.
As you know, many
Oh.
economists
Oh.
say that
No, we
with
must
tariffs
call
at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have
China.
been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under
Yeah,
their
that is
administration. We are
that
going
is
to
a
take
really
in
valid point, man. I'd
billions
never
of dollars,
remove those
hundreds
tariffs.
of
'Cause
billions of
they
dollars.
kind of work.
I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the
If
economy.
that was true, my daughter
And
would
all
be
you have to
freaking
do is
out.
look
That's
at a
all she
poll.
eats is
The
cereal.
polls say
And
80 and
maybe that's why I don't have
85
any
and
money.
even 90%
Bacon.
that the Trump economy
No,
was
I'll tell you
great,
though.
that their
I
economy
mean,
was
I'm
terrible.
still.
Vice
It's been
President
4
Harris, I
years
do
of
want to
these
ask for your
clowns,
response, and you heard what the
and
president
I
said there, because the Biden administration
still
did
am
keep
shocked
a
when I
number
go to
of
the
the
grocery
Trump
store
tariffs in
and
place.
I'm
So how do you
like,
respond?
that amount of
Well,
stuff
let's be
was
clear.
$200.
The Trump
You
administration
know, like
resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade
Maybe I'm with
wars.
you. Bacon
You
is
want
too
to talk
expensive.
about his deal
It's worth
with
it, though.
China.
That's
what
why.
he ended up doing is under Donald
I
Trump's
still eat it. I
presidency,
don't care.
he ended up
You know what's
selling
better than
bacon.
bacon, Eric?
American chips to
More
China
bacon.
to help
That's
them
right.
improve and
No, I had
modernize
I had
their
to stop drinking
military,
nice beer. I'm just
basically
doing
sold
Natural Light
us
now
out
and
when
Frio.
a policy
All I can
about
afford.
China should be
You gotta
in
get you some
making sure
Hamadi
the
wine,
United
bro.
States of
It's too
America
expensive.
wins the
No
competition for the
inflation on
21st
this.
century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we
What's up,
win
Bobby?
the race on AI, on quantum
I
computing.
love when she says
Focusing on what
investing.
we need to
What does
do to
investing
support
mean?
America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick
Pretty sure it
in
means higher
terms of
taxes.
workers' rights.
Yeah, it's
But what
like,
Donald Trump
who's
did,
paying for
let's
that?
talk about this, with COVID, is
You're
he actually
how are you
thanked
getting the money to
President
invest?
Xi for
From
what
the
he
bacon,
did during
bro.
COVID. Look
But
at
You're not
his
paying
tweet.
attention.
Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips
Taiwan.
anymore because of
China.
philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy, but if she ever got elected, she'd change
I'll
it.
give him this.
And
He is
it
the
will
funniest
be the
guy
end of our
ever.
country. She's a Marxist. Everybody
to
knows
be
she's a
in that
Marxist.
office.
Her father's a
Dude,
Marxist
her
professor in
response is perfect.
economics.
Look at the way
And
she's
he
looking.
taught her well.
Yeah,
But when you
like
look
this,
at what
like,
she's
tell
done
me
to our
more.
country, and when you look at these millions and
I love the
millions of
chin.
people that are pouring into our
That's
country
probably
monthly,
unnecessary, but I
whereas
still
I
like it.
believe 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21.
I'll
That's
give her
bigger
this,
than
dude,
New
because
York
that is
State
exactly the
pouring
way
in.
you
And
respond to
just
that,
look at what
just by
they're
like
doing to our
good
country.
amusement, you
They're
know?
criminals. Many
Yeah.
of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the
Insane.
issue of abortion.
Jamie, I'm with
President
you.
Trump, you often
I don't think she
touted that
looks
you were
scared
able
either.
to kill
She looks
Roe
good.
v.
Yeah.
Wade.
Powerful.
Yeah,
Last
she
year,
warmed
you
up.
said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration
Oh,
would be
this'll be
great for
interesting.
women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the
Well, it's
baby.
not West
And
Virginia.
that's
That's
why I
Virginia.
did that,
You got
because
that wrong.
that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential
Execute the
pick, which I
baby.
think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says
Jamie.
abortion in the
I
9th
love that,
month
right?
is
That
absolutely
is hysterical.
fine. He also
Do we
says
honestly believe he
execution
doesn't believe in
after birth. It's
abortion? He's
execution,
prayed
no
for
longer
many.
abortion, because the baby is born is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years.
I think
They've
I'm
been
sure
Sure,
he
he
trying to get
executed the
Roe
babies
v.
before the
Wade
9th month, though.
into
That's
the
what's
states.
important.
He's going to say Roe v.
And
Wade.
through
Come on.
the genius and heart and strength
Say Roe v.
of
Wade.
6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 50
I mean, that is his
years.
best chance to get that
Every legal
behind him.
scholar, every
That
Democrat,
abortion
every
is a loser for him
Republican,
big time.
liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. And now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Oh,
Well,
so
as I
there's
said,
the
you're here
live
with the
fact check.
lies, and
Let's
that's not
fact check.
actually
Let's
a
fact check.
surprising
Live fact
fact.
check.
She loves
Let's
doing that on
understand
Meet
how
the
we got
Press.
here.
Well, actually, sir,
Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade.
Boom.
And they did exactly as he
Quick.
intended. And now
Oh, did you
in
get one?
over 20
Yeah,
Go ahead.
states,
Wade.
there are Trump abortion bans,
oh, nice.
which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her
And Donald
body.
Trump
I
certainly.
have talked with women around our country.
Boom.
You want to
Power.
talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry
I agree with
a
you, Jamie.
pregnancy
She
to
is nailing
term,
this one.
suffering
Nailing it.
from a miscarriage, being
Nailing it.
denied care in an emergency
He's
room
on-
because
they're on the wrong
healthcare
side of this one, man.
providers
I don't know
are
what else
afraid
to
they
say about
might
it.
go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that.
I wonder if they'll
And I
fact check
pledge to
as
you,
well
When
the
Congress passes a bill
how many
to
states
put
have a
back
no
in place the
exceptions to
protections
abortion
of
law. I
Roe
don't
v.
think
Wade,
any of them
as
do.
President of the United States, I will
So-
proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies,
Not listening
your
too well, though.
miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank
Boom.
you,
Did
Vice
she
President
freaking said
Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says
Stop bragging
is
about it,
an
though, bud.
absolute lie. And as far as the abortion
This one ain't
ban,
doing you any favors.
no, I'm not
No.
in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it
Well,
came
I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, 2 things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress.
Just
She'll
say
never get the vote.
yes.
This
It's
is
never coming to your
impossible for her
desk.
get
Just
the
say
vote,
yes.
especially now with the 50-50,
Just boggles
Why
my
does it
mind.
even matter?
essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to
There's
get the vote.
part of
She
the
can't get
right
the vote. She
wing
won't even
will
come
be
close
really
to it.
upset
So
if he
it's just
says he
talk.
would
You know what it
veto it.
reminds
I
me
know,
of when
that's
they
why I
said they're
can't-
going
I
to
don't-
get
I get it.
student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe.
Oh, what's up,
Student loans,
Amanda?
and then her,
Amanda
I
says
think probably
pro-birth,
her
not
boss,
pro-life.
if you call
That's
him a boss, he
100%
spends all
right,
his
man.
time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, "We'll do it again. We'll do
No
it a
abortions,
different way." And he
but
went
also
out,
no money
got
for
rejected
healthcare or
again
education.
by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea, and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free, but they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running
What?
mate, JD Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with JD, in all fairness.
Give me a
JD,
break.
and I don't mind if he has a certain view,
Can't
but
answer
I
the
think you're
question.
speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it.
What is he
because
doing? What is
she'd
this?
never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get
This is
student loans.
not
They didn't
gonna
even come
answer your
close to getting
question.
student loans.
Dishes
They
and
taunted
water.
This is
young
my attempt to
people and
dodge
a
your
lot of other
question.
people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. So wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for
Thanks,
years
Bobby.
they wanted
I'm
to get
actually
it out
upstairs
of
in my own
Congress and
house.
out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I
Great question.
absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly
There aren't
mentioned,
any.
nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under
that's a
Donald
no,
Trump's
then.
abortion bans.
She's
Couples
not.
who
There are
pray
no
Well,
exceptions.
the
and
protections
dream
under
of
Roe v.
having a
Wade are
family are being
third trimester, I
denied
think.
IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who
Roe v.
are
Wade had no
working 1 or 2
restrictions?
jobs.
No, it
who
did.
can barely
It
afford
restricted. It
childcare
restricted
as
for
it
the third
is,
trimester,
have to
except
travel
that.
to another
Except
state
that, in the
to
exceptions
get on a
of
plane
health of the
sitting
mother,
next to strangers
and
to
health
go
can
and
be
get the
anything.
health care she needs.
So you could have
Barely can
third
afford to
third
do it,
trimester
and what
abortions
you
by
are
just
putting
saying,
her
well, you know,
through is unconscionable.
whatever, even
And
mental
the
health,
people of America
any
have
kind of health
not,
issue
the
whatsoever.
majority of Americans
So
believe in a woman's
functionally,
right to
Roe
make
v. Wade
decisions
was
about
no
her own body.
restrictions.
And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot in red and blue states both, the people of
Ken says she
America
sounds
have
like
voted
Fran
for freedom.
Drescher.
Vice President.
Ken, I
She's
watched a
gonna have
clip
to
the other day
respond.
where they had
Another
her with
lie.
the
It's
Seinfeld
another
music
lie.
playing in the
I
background.
have been a leader on IVF,
Dum,
which is
dum, dum,
fertilization.
dum, dum.
The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact,
Oh,
when
there's
they
the
got a
idea.
very negative decision on IVF
Is
from
that
the
a
Alabama
spot?
Oh,
courts,
IVF.
I saw the people of Alabama and the
No, he didn't say free
legislature
IVF,
2 days
though.
later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody
Are we
else
taking
knows
that
it.
off or no?
I have been
Oh,
a
no.
leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should
You didn't say
ask,
free? Can't tell you
would
if you
she
didn't say
allow
free.
abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you
That's
answer
the
the
problem.
question? Would you
Because
veto?
under Roe
What happened to the
v. Wade,
microphone?
Question,
you
would you
could
veto?
do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th
Oh, yeah.
month.
Sounds
the
like there's
9th
a
month,
microphone
and
defeat.
probably after birth. Just look at
Hold
the
on, let me
governor,
get him. I'm
former
speaking here.
governor
Excuse
of
me.
Virginia. The governor of Virginia
The
said
big
we
loser
put
in
the
this
baby
debate, the
aside, and
rules.
then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to
Debbie
the root
says she
causes
wants
of
to kill all the
migration from
babies.
Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high.
Debbie,
in the
you're so
Biden
bloodthirsty.
administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is,
Insane
why did the
asylum, that's why.
administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only
Great
person
question,
on this
ABC.
stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings.
Give me a
And let me
break.
say that the United States Congress, including some of the most
I'm a
conservative
lawyer.
members of the United
I'm
States
a
Senate,
lawyer and
came
an
up with a
officer in the
border
United
security
States
bill,
Navy.
which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now
I said that too,
overtime, trying to
Bobby.
do their
He's a
job.
good-looking dude.
It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the
Just a
United
snack.
States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been
All right,
personally
Hamadi.
affected
Cheers.
by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of
Wasn't this
fixing
the
a
bill
problem.
that was
And I'll
like
tell you something,
3/4
he's
of it
going to
was
talk about
funding
immigration a
more
lot tonight, even when it's
weapons
not
to
the subject that
Ukraine?
is being raised.
Like not even
And I'm going to actually do something
like
really
the border
unusual, and
stuff
I'm
was
going to
like a
invite
little
you
tiny drop in
to
the
attend one
bucket.
of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter.
Jamie, kill the bill
He
and the
will talk
babies.
about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early
Guys,
out of
Rich
exhaustion
wants to show
and
you his
boredom.
cool box.
And
Looks
I
like a
will tell
book,
you, the one thing you
but
will
it's
not
a
hear him
box.
talk about is you. You will not hear him
How do
talk
you
about
open
your
it, too?
needs,
Oh,
your
it's a
dreams,
secret.
and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you
Doesn't everybody
deserve
want one of
a
those?
president who actually
Pretty
puts you
cool.
first. And I
Mhm.
pledge to you that
They
I
all
will.
like it.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to
Let
respond.
me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's
Dude,
busing them in
get
and
off
paying
it.
them to be there. And
She does
then
bust in people
showing
to her
them in a
rallies.
different light.
Just
So
like a
she can't talk
crew.
about that. People don't leave my rallies.
Pretty
We have
funny.
the biggest rallies,
So
the
he
most
gives away free
incredible
tickets to his
in the
rallies.
history
I
of
mean, come on.
politics. That's because people want to
Dude,
take
she-
their
They
country
can
back.
vote the track.
Our
Bid it
country
in.
is being lost. We're a
This
failing
was a baiting
nation.
deal.
And it
She
happened
was told,
three
bring
and a
up
half
the
years
stuff
ago.
to
And
get him lined in.
what-
And now
what's
he's
going on here, you're
off
going to
the
end up in
rails.
World War III,
Yeah,
just to go into another
she got it in his
subject.
head.
What
Yeah.
they have done to our country by allowing these
Crowd size.
millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be
That girl
Aurora
just
or
forgot it.
Springfield.
She
A
knows
lot
too.
of
Look at her
towns don't want
face.
to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in
Supposedly
our
this is
country.
true.
And it's a shame.
I don't
As
know.
far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals.
There's the
within
live
But what
cat.
about
in that
eaten?
community.
What about
People
eaten?
on television.
Let me just
Humanely
say here, this
eaten?
is
The people on television say
clar-
my dog was taken and
I'm eating this
used for
cow.
food. So maybe he said that, and maybe
You
that's
can't
a good
claim to be
thing
in
to say
pain.
for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the
We'll
rest of it.
find out.
You
Find
talk
out.
about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election,
my
I
God.
actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formally worked
I
with
thought you was gonna
President
say
Bush,
carnivores.
Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including
dogs
the
are great.
endorsement of
Part of
former
a
Vice
regional
President
cuisine.
Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you
Oh,
want to
oh,
really
Cheney.
know
Boom.
the
Oh,
inside
yep.
Cheney,
track on
yep.
who the
All
former president
right.
is, if he
Dick
didn't make it
Cheney,
clear
great
already,
American.
just ask people who have
Great
worked with him.
American.
It's like
His
I love
former
Dick
chief
Cheney
of staff,
now.
a four-star
I never
general,
thought
think
I'd
he
hear a
was Darth
Democrat
Vader.
brag
for the
about getting Dick
Constitution of the
Cheney's
United
endorsement.
States.
No,
His
she's
former
honored.
national
She's
security
honored for Dick
advisor
Cheney
has
to
said he is
endorse her.
dangerous and unfit.
Darth Vader.
His former
this is great.
Secretary of
This
Defense
is
has
great.
said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Thank you. Because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people, not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently
You're
handled
fired.
situations
fired.
anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad
I mean,
job,
that was a pretty,
I
The
fired
ratings
pretty
are so
embarrassing.
high.
you take a guy like Esper, he was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they?
I didn't fire Bob
They
Woodward.
have
He wrote a
done
couple of
such a
books. but
poor
still.
job, and they never fire anybody.
He was too smart to
Look
ever
at the
take a
economy.
paycheck from me,
Look at
though.
the inflation.
I couldn't fire
They
him.
didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration.
True,
That was
you
what
got more
wanted
votes
to talk
than
about
Obama.
earlier. So let's get
True.
back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the
Hillary
National
Clinton
Guard.
got
You
more
say if
votes
things
than
get
he
out of
did.
control, you'd have no problem using the U.S.
With local
military.
police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given
They're
them
all
to
here
her
eating our
to put
animals.
into our country. And this will
Hey,
be
those
one of
cats
the
are pretty
greatest
tasty.
mistakes
You seen
in
some of
history
them?
for them to
Very
allow.
fat.
And
Lot
I
of
think
calories.
they probably did it
Good
because they
eating.
think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it.
Oh, I'm with you,
because
Jamie.
they're
It is
destroying the
absolutely.
fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world.
If we could just get them
crime is
eating
down all
something
over the
other
world
than
except here.
dogs.
Crime
Dogs.
here is up and
Dogs,
through
yeah.
the roof.
Could you
Despite
Eat some
the
Yeah.
undesirable
fraudulent
animal, like
statements
wild
that they made,
hogs.
crime in
The,
this
You know,
country is through
Sutherland
the
will
roof.
tell you, like,
And
I
we
mean,
have a
you
That's
new
would
what
give
kind of
those to
Jamie
you.
crime.
was
It's
all over
called
that.
migrant
You could do
crime,
the
and it's
Snowpiercer
happening
brick.
at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris, I'll
FBI
give you
they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump,
Yeah,
thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President.
that was
Well,
not
I think
accurate.
this is so
That
rich
was a fraud. Yeah.
coming from someone who has been prosecuted
Oh yeah.
Oh,
for
Oh.
I got
national
more bingo.
security
More
crimes,
bingo.
economic crimes, election interference,
I see,
has
Russ, this is
been
what I told
found
you.
liable
She didn't say
for
convicted
sexual
felon, but she
assault,
said
and
prosecuted.
his next big
Yeah, he didn't say
court
convicted felon
appearance
yet,
is in
though.
November
Like,
at his own
Yeah.
criminal sentencing.
Oh.
And let's be
Oh.
clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents.
Excuse me.
Get this.
You did.
On the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts.
Oh,
So
I see.
let's talk about what is
I see.
important in this race. It is important that we move
That is true.
forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric
Same
and
old.
address the needs of the American
I'm the
people.
change candidate.
Address what we need to do
I'm here to
about
do
the
things.
As the
housing
incumbent, I
shortage,
would like to
which I
introduce
have a
myself
plan
as the
for.
change candidate.
Address
Yeah.
what we must do to support our small businesses. Address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are
Aren't you?
exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of
Excuse
those
me.
cases
Excuse
was
me.
started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those
Fani?
cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that
Didn't realize.
made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago,
getting in
it
the
was
weeds, bro.
thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it.
It was
It's
thrown
happened
out
in this country.
by
They
a judge
used
that
it
he put in
to
his
try
seat.
and win an election.
President
They're
Trump.
fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about
Addicted
extreme
felon,
and
let's go.
understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court
You're dying to say it. Say
recently
it.
ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American
What are they
people.
saying?
Just asking for money.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Before she gets off the stage, don't waste this opportunity. Show everyone
This
that
is the
you're a
one that
true
weaponized, not
patriot.
me. She
Give
weaponized.
money.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a
President
fake Russia investigation
We do have a lot to
that
get-
went nowhere.
Russia.
Reminds me of that. Reminds me of that debate with Hillary. You're the puppet. You're the puppet.
Ban fracking. Now you don't. You want
Fracking.
mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
Good question.
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every
Great question.
one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's
In
talk
the
about
next
fracking
30
because we're here in
seconds.
Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking.
That's
I have
not what you
not
said.
banned fracking as Vice President of the United States, and in fact,
That's 'cause you
was
can't
the
do anything as Vice President of the United
vote
States.
on the Inflation Reduction Act,
Sit in your office
which
at the
opened new
observatory.
leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil.
I like
We
how she
have
worked that diversity
had
in
the
there. That's
largest
clever.
Let's call it
increase in
trans energy.
domestic oil production
Trans
in
energy. Oh, I like that.
history
Yeah.
Mhm.
because of
good.
an approach that recognizes
That's very diverse.
that we cannot over rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle class kid,
Such as
raised
they
by
are.
a
Normal.
hardworking mother who
I'm not weird.
worked and saved and was
I
able
worked
to
at
buy our first
McDonald's.
home when I was a teenager.
I'm eating
The
McDonald's.
values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work
Oh,
with the
she went
private
there.
sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value
Not
that is
men.
deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable.
She's not going to win
My
any
work
Tony Awards
that is
with this
about protecting
act here.
Social Security and Medicare
I don't
is
know.
based on
She looks
long-standing
real
work that I
emotional to
have
me.
done,
She
protecting
had that
seniors
tremble in
from
her voice.
scams.
It's
My
It's
I don't
this
know.
way.
values have not changed.
People.
And what is important
My
is that there
values
is
have
a
not
president who
changed. I've
actually
never had
brings
any.
values and a
Yeah, I gotta say
perspective
that she's
that
been
is
way
about
more on
lifting
point, and she
people
has done
up
a great job of
and not
antagonizing
beating
him in a
people
way that's
100%.
and name calling.
100%.
The true measure of the leader
Still a lot to make
is
fun
the
of, though.
leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to
Oh my
be
God.
that
That's a good
president.
one. That's a good
President
line.
Trump, your
Well, first of all, I
response.
wasn't given
Come on.
$400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now. You know,
Oh, can we use the
Does that
I'm
sound
speaking?
familiar?
Does that sound familiar?
She went out.
I don't know.
She went out
I don't think that's going to do
in
me any favors.
Minnesota and wanted to let
Can we use that?
criminals
Is I'm
that
speaking
killed
the same as I'm
people,
talking now?
that burned
Yeah.
down
Yeah, I think we
Minneapolis.
can do it. I'm
She
speaking
went out
here.
and raised money
Okay.
to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in
Sound
prison.
familiar?
This is a radical
Yeah.
left liberal that would do this.
That shows you how much
wants
you got.
to
She got under
confiscate
his
your
skin.
guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. if she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing so important, in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times,
Bobby,
4
not
times,
many
5
would be
times
my
higher, because
Yeah,
you're talking
my
about
estimate.
3.5 years ago.
You,
They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump.
Quadrupling
But
and
if she
doubling.
won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead. Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back
Fossil
to
fuel
solar,
is dead.
where they need a whole
They're
desert to get
fossil.
They're
some
fossils.
energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400,
President Trump.
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get to.
environment, as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I
Carol
want to talk
said-
about the peaceful
Carol says he
transfer
needs
of
a bucket
power,
of water
which,
poured
course,
on
we
him.
all know is a cornerstone of our
Cool 'em
democracy
down.
and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them.
January
The
6th.
country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack.
Dude, I
Aides
got
in the
10
West Wing
squares
say you
plus the
watched
free
it unfold
space.
on
I got a
television
bingo.
off the Oval Office.
Bingo.
Can I at least
You
get
did
one?
send
Ah.
out tweets, but it was more
Gosh,
than
damn
2
it.
hours before you sent out that
All
video
right,
message
well, you're the winner today.
telling your supporters.
Put it back.
Bingo.
Put it back.
Put it frack. Put it frack.
That
I just
isn't
wanted to show
covered
you.
peacefully and patriotically. I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically.
Well,
And
somebody else now sounds like Fran Drescher.
killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been
Come on,
treated
man. Don't
so
talk down the
badly.
police.
I ask, what about all the
You
people
got straight
that
to
are
the
pouring
interview.
into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, "Oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet."
Chris says he's
That's
doing the
because
drinking game wrong. Are
she
you still
knows what a
sober,
bad
Chris? Is that
job
the
they've
problem?
done. What about those people? What are they going to be
Chris,
prosecuted?
here's to you, buddy.
One of these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world.
Coming
because
to
of it.
America.
One of those, David, one of those people are going to be prosecuted. One of the people that burned down Minneapolis is going to be prosecuted. Or in Seattle, they went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. One of those people are
Chaz.
going to be prosecuted.
Mhm. The
But
chop.
let me just ask
You might ask her that
You,
question.
you were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret
That's a burn.
about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what
Gobble his
happened.
face,
They
man.
want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the
I was
vice
there.
president-elect. I was
I was
also
in
an acting
danger.
senator. I was there. And on that day, the president of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our
Uh,
nation's capital,
We're holding on to that
to
one.
desecrate our nation's capital. On that day,
Bro, this is where you and I
140 law
part company,
enforcement
man.
officers were
Like,
injured.
it was, we
And
all
some
watched
died.
it. It's crazy to
And
me that you don't
understand
just own it. Yeah,
that
that happened.
Former president
This
has
is
been
a
indicted and
wild
impeached
protest.
for exactly that reason.
Yeah, it
But
was
this is not
definitely a
an
wild
isolated
protest.
situation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's remember Charlottesville,
Fiery, but mostly peaceful.
where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? there were fine people on each side. Let's remember
That one's been debunked.
that when it came to
I'd be
the
curious
Proud
how many
Boys, a
Trump
militia,
flags were used to beat
the
cops on
president
that
said,
day.
the former
honestly.
president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back. Let's
Yeah,
not
that was
go
weird.
back. We're
That
not
was weird.
going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was
Bobby,
a bridge
it
too
was a
far
tour
for
of the
you,
Capitol.
well, there is a
Yes.
place
Just a
in
For
scroll.
some of them, it
our
was.
campaign for you.
There's
to
some
stand,
Scroll through with some poop in your
for
hands, wipe on the
country,
walls. No big deal.
to stand
There's
for
some
our
security
democracy,
video
to stand
of
for rule
Capitol
of
Police
law,
guiding people
and to
through,
end the
opening doors for
chaos.
them.
Yeah,
I think
but there's other
end
security
the
video of them
approach
like
that is
beating on
about
cops.
attacking
Right.
the
Well, what I'm saying, though,
foundations
is
of our
some people,
democracy because you
their
don't like
experience
the
was going into the
outcome.
Capitol,
And be clear,
walking around
on
guided by
that
security
point,
people.
Donald
these
Trump, the
folks
candidate,
carrying banners, they
has
walked
said in
out.
this election there will be
That
a
was their experience.
bloodbath.
Yeah, but
If
a lot of
this
those
and
Capitol
the
Police
outcome of this
also said that
election
they
is
were
not to his
in
liking,
fear that if they didn't try to
let's turn
control
the
it and
page on
control where the
this. Let's
flow of
not
people
go
were going,
back.
that people would
Let's
go
chart
ad
a
hoc wherever they
course
wanted to go.
for the
Sure.
future
No, I'm just
and
saying
not
if you're
go
the person that
backwards to
is
the
way
past.
back in
Let me
line,
just follow up
and you
here.
walk in and you're
It
guided
was
around,
a
and you
different
walk
term, and
out.
it was a term that
How,
related to
how are
energy
you
because
supposed to
they've
know you
destroyed
were
our
involved in
energy
a
business.
violent
That was where
insurrection?
bloodbath was. Also, on
Well,
Charlottesville,
when windows are
that
breaking and
story
you're
has
going
been,
through
as you would say,
a broken
debunked.
door, a broken window, it
Laura
seems to be
Ingraham,
pretty clear.
Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up,
Bobby,
just like they
who
bring
doesn't smear feces on
2025
the
up.
walls and urinate
They
in the
bring all
hallways
of
when
this
they tour
stuff
the
up. I
Capitol?
ask you this: you talk about the
The
Capitol.
podium
Good point.
stealing guy.
Why
I've
are
been
we
totally
allowing
missing out. Yeah,
these
yeah.
millions of people
Podium
to
stealing
come
guy's out of
through
jail
the
finally.
southern border? How come she's not doing
Yeah, that's
anything?
right.
And I'll tell
That's
you
right.
what I
You
would
I think
do,
that was
I
and
did. I
be
did my
very proud
time.
to do it.
I think that
I
was
would say
the
we would both
longest
leave
case
this
of
debate right now.
incarceration
I'd
for
like to see her go
trespassing
down
and
to
like petty
Washington,
theft
D.C. during this
ever.
debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down
Yeah, he
to
just got out.
Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office.
I'd love to
Let's
hear a
sign bill."
question on who's
If
actually
he-
running
if
the
he
country right
signs a
now.
bill that the
That would
border
be a
is
great
closed. All he
question.
has
Here,
to do is
I
say
already,
to the border.
here's the answer.
We're this close to a
If they do
war
that,
with
the
Russia,
border is closed.
and
Mr.
the
President,
people are
freaking
killing many
president
people,
can't
unlike
like string a
J6.
sentence
We
together
talked
past 7
immigration here
p.m.
tonight. I do want to
Explain to me
focus
how.
on this next issue.
So I'll
development
tell you. I'll
because it
tell you the
really
answer.
brings us
The
this
same
into focus.
people who
Truth,
run the
in
country
these
if
times that
Harris
we're
is
living in.
elected.
Mr. President, for 3.5 years,
I know the
after,
answer.
you
I
lost
want.
the
I want
2020
her to
election,
I
admit
want her to
repeatedly,
say it.
falsely claimed that you
I'm gonna
won,
say that.
many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't
It's all
quite
bread
make
and
it, that you
circuses,
came up a
people.
little bit short.
Just
I
Are
said
you-
that.
distraction
now
to
acknowledging
hide
that
the
you lost
fact
in
No, I
2020?
don't acknowledge that.
the
It was
country's
said
totally being run by
sarcastically,
people
you
that
know that. It was said,
for
"Oh,
them,
we
like,
lost by a whisker."
the fact that
was
the
said
people have to vote
sarcastically.
is kind of an
Look,
annoyance.
There's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016,
that was the adjective he was
can't
missing
be
the last
beaten.
time.
The election, people
most
should
votes of
never
any
be
sitting
thinking about
president.
it. An election is fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls. And we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are
And
bad.
bacon.
And a lot of
Don't
these
forget
illegal
bacon.
immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them
$4,000
to
of
vote.
bacon.
They can't even speak
Plenty of
English. They
dogs
don't
to
even know
eat.
what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No judge
Republican,
looked at it.
and said there
They
was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll
Dog
show
bacon
you
from Emily.
Wisconsin, and
Yeah.
I'll show you
I mean, that's
Pennsylvania,
available
and I'll show
in
you.
Ohio.
We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter.
We have the best
because
facts.
we have to solve the
The most
problem
beautiful
that we
facts.
have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a
There you
nation
go.
that
Oh,
is
finally you
dying,
get back on
David.
message
Mr.
after an
President, thank you.
hour-long
Vice
detour.
President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still
I just wanted to kind of
believes,
take a look
he
at
did
these
not lose
weeds
the
over
election.
here.
That was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something
Unbelievable.
that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about
Well,
this
Jen, she's
upcoming
going to come out of
election,
this
just
just
weeks
fine.
away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States. And world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that.
Chris, that's one
but
of
he
my
let the
favorite
Russians
quotes,
build
man.
a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany,
accurate.
the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian
At least I
law
accurately
must be
titled this
respected.
as a dumpster
Israel
fire.
must do more to protect innocent civilians.
Well done.
You said
Well
that
done.
9 months ago.
Thanks.
Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain.
Oh, here you go. An
Just last week,
actual
Prime Minister
issue of
Benjamin Netanyahu
significance.
said there's
Interesting.
not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis, many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters, because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed, children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock.
We need
on
the
that.
war to end.
Work around the clock. Also
Yeah,
understand
exactly,
that
Bobby.
we must chart a course for a two-state
Unlike other
solution.
rapes, these rapes were
And
horrible.
in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and an equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular
How nice of you.
as it relates to Iran and any threat
No,
that Iran and its
that's a
proxies
funding
pose
promise.
to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza,
I mean,
where the
every
Palestinians
president's ever
have
given it to them.
security,
Nothing new there.
self-determination, and the
Well,
dignity they
there's
so
a
rightly
pretty large
deserve.
portion of the left
President
that
Trump, how would you negotiate
calls what's
with
happening in
Netanyahu
Gaza
and also
genocide.
Hamas in order to
And
get the
so,
hostages
like when
out
I was
and
in
prevent the
Ireland,
killing of
there are
more
these big
innocent
murals
civilians
with
in
Joe
Gaza?
Biden's
If I
like
were
"Go home,
president, it
genocide
would have
Joe,"
never
like that
started.
kind of stuff.
If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with
That's possibly the
Netanyahu when
best
he went
comment
to
of the
Congress to
evening,
make a
Ash.
very important speech. She
It's
refused to
a
be there because
debate.
she was at a
They
sorority
got to let him
party of
talk.
hers. She wanted to go
That's
to the
why he
sorority
wanted his
party.
mics turned up.
She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened.
The hell is he talking
Iran was
about?
broke under Donald Trump. Now
Smash,
Iran
we
has
love you too, girl.
$300
Glad you're
billion
here.
because they took off all the sanctions that I had.
As we
Iran
warm
had
ourselves
no
around the
money
fire
for
here.
Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror. Horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually.
Is there
They had
another
no
kind?
money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war
Bobby.
with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well
best friends are
known
probably Israel.
that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can
That's
do
actually a great
whatever the
tactic,
hell he
though.
wants
Dan
and go
taught me
into
that one.
Ukraine. It is
Makes
well
sense, doesn't it?
known that he said when
Makes total
Russia went
sense.
into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged
here's a
love
text from
letters with
Pelosi
Kim
now.
Jong-un.
It's Nancy
And it is
Pelosi. This is from a new
absolutely
number. I
well
can't
known
block them.
that
Right, 'cause
these
it's just new numbers every
dictators
time.
and autocrats are
Hey, we're
rooting
getting there.
for you to be
The
president
presidential
again because
debate
they're so
just
clear.
began.
They can
Chip in
manipulate
$15
you
ASAP to
with
defeat
flattery
Trump and
and
elect
favors.
Dems.
And
It only
that
takes
is
$15
why
to defeat Trump.
so
Boom.
many military leaders who you have worked
Can I
with
put it on my
have
visa?
told me you
How
are a
much did Bernie
That
ask
is
for?
why
$24.95.
we understand that we
I don't
have
remember.
to have a
I
president
never
Yeah,
got the
who is not
$24.95. That's
consistently
right.
Never got the
weak
Bernie
and
emails.
wrong on
Vice
national
President
security.
Harris.
Feel the
Oh, you weren't on our
burn.
The
list.
importance
Yeah,
of
his
upholding
emails were
and
the best, man.
respecting in highest regard
He had
our
that logo
military.
with the
Vice
shaka
President
hair.
Harris, thank you.
Feel the
And
burn.
she's the one that
I like to
caused
call it the Rick and Morty.
that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the
She's the
year,
puppet.
168
You're the puppet.
different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin
So,
endorsed her
someone
last
asked
week.
for
Said, I
a
hope she
fact
wins.
check
And I
on
think
this.
he meant it
Uh-huh.
because what he's gotten away with is
It's going to be
absolutely
almost
incredible. It
impossible to
wouldn't have
tell.
happened with me.
And the reason
The
for that
leaders
is
of
that
other
Emily asked for that,
countries
yeah.
think that they're
Yeah.
weak
There's
and
no way to tell
incompetent, and they
because
are.
and
They're
this is kind of
grossly
unfortunate.
incompetent. And I just ask
A
one
lot of the
question.
sanctuary
Why
city
does Biden go
areas
in and kill the
are
Keystone
not
Pipeline
reporting on these
and
crimes,
approve the single
but you
biggest
have like a
deal that
lot of sort of
Russia's
word of
ever
mouth
made,
stuff.
Nord Stream 2, the
So
biggest pipeline anywhere in the
um,
world going to Germany and all
there's
over Europe
there are people on
because they're
record in New York
weak
City
and they're
saying that like
ineffective.
70%
Biden, by the
of
way, has
their
taken
like
a lot
petty
of money.
thefts
Thank you.
or
We have a
small
lot of
crimes or
issues to
whatever
get
are
to.
done by
You're
illegal
right,
immigrants,
much more of this
and then they
historic
cannot
ABC News
then
presidential debate
prosecute
from the
them
National
without
Constitution Center
introducing
right
them
here
into
in
the
Philadelphia.
Well, no, no, no,
uh,
no. Emily's question is the opposite. Emily's question is, are global crime rates down
right.
over the
Well,
last
that
3 years?
we don't know. There's no way to know that. We don't. There's no uniform reporting on that kind of thing.
Interpol, whatever.
Yeah, and you also have to keep in mind it's like if you have a crime-ridden
Grilling
country
is an art.
and
Don't forget to add sausage.
oh, go ahead and mute that if you would mind. If you have a crime-ridden country and they're
You don't want to hear
exporting,
about thick sausage?
no, no thanks. But yeah, and they're exporting their criminal element. It's not like, oh wow, I guess nobody's going to be selling drugs or running prostitutes here anymore. It's like that void will be taken up by one of the other rival gangs and so on. So um, there's no way to tell. Like that's one of those that I don't think is even in principle fact checkable.
The other thing about his whole statement that makes no sense to me is exactly what you said, dude. Like, if there is a market for, I mean, at the end of the day, crime is about either getting something that you don't have or providing something that people can't get. So, drugs, prostitution, etc. Or I'm trying to acquire things that, I can't, whatever, get on my own.
Theft, and you have like revenge crimes and so on. Yeah,
crime is itself an economy, and so the whole idea of like, oh, they shipped out all their worst people to America and now crime is down everywhere makes no sense, because like if I ship out the worst, racketeers, somebody else just shows up to run the racket because the people in that country want to play the racket. So that just didn't make any sense. I mean, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. It's never rang true for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I do think though. So I know there's been a lot of talk about like, is there a migrant crime wave, and whether that's real or not. And I don't think we're getting honest numbers. So again, this is one where it's like you're gonna talk to some law enforcement personnel in some cities who are like, absolutely, this is real. I've seen it myself, and then you're gonna see other people that are like, the statistics say no, and
but
so on.
Anecdotally though, some of these stories are really, I mean, they sell really well. Like that the gang that took over the apartment complex in Denver, or these these dog eaters and whatever, Sandusky, or whatever. At the end of the day, like, I mean, these are, I mean, that inspires fear into, oh my God, what if they come here and start eating our dogs?
Yeah, but you pull one or two good stories, you create the metaphors for what you want to paint as a narrative, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, that could be the
other thing,
1% of what's happening.
Correct. And the other thing that I cannot like forget is that every year when he was president, like, he would always ramp up right before election time. Oh, there's caravans of they have leprosy. They're coming to America. I mean, every time. So it's like, I mean, do I agree that Biden has opened the floodgates of immigration? Yes. Do I think that that's good for America? No. Do I think it's a colossal? Do I think that's a downward pressure on wages? Yes. Do I think that that contributes to crime? Yes. Yeah, all those things, right? And I also don't think that you can like just paint with this broad brush like this. Like, I mean, you've been playing this racket for the last like several years. It doesn't necessarily sell to the extent that you think it does. I mean, maybe with some people, but I mean, unless you have a very short memory, like, I mean, you've seen this before. It's like, it's like watching a movie again going, this is amazing. It's like, dude, you saw that movie, a couple weeks ago. I do that sometimes. Loa calls me out of that. You saw this before. Oh,
I think it depends on how much it affects you personally. So like,
correct.
For me, I live in Houston. It's a very diverse city. There's people here from all over the world. It's not a sanctuary city. However, there are a lot of people here that are immigrants, first gen, and so on. And so it's like, for all I know, the Salvadorian family that I just bought pupusas from, that they were grilling it out in the middle of the street. Those are delicious, by the way. For all I know,
those are street tacos.
Yeah, they're probably. I mean, they might. I don't know if they're here legally or not. I paid them in cash. I don't know if they're paying taxes.
Those tacos are delicious.
They were, And that's the thing is, I have the privilege, living in the city that I do, that it's like, well, it's not an issue for me. If I was in a small town,
But also, you don't work for a restaurant that's being put out of business by the illegal food trailer. So I get what you're saying.
exactly,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like you can see like the further up you are in the social hierarchy, the more illegal immigration seems to help you out. Your dishes are cleaned cheaply, your lawn is manicured cheaply.
All right,
and
you
the
guys ready
problems are for other people.
You ready to
Oh,
get
we're
back
back.
here to the beautiful man here? Yeah.
This
Let's do it.
Bobby's
The
boyfriend.
position of the Biden administration that we must defend
Poor Bobby.
Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's
Oh, we got a Ukraine question.
arguing that if Putin
Oh,
wins,
here we go.
he may be emboldened
None of our
to move
business. That's
further
my
into
opinion.
other countries.
Russ, you and I are still in this game, by the way.
Solve this war in 24
Yeah,
hours.
I know. I'm waiting.
Before the break tonight. How exactly would
No
you
one said
do that?
Obama,
And I wanna ask
weird.
you a very simple
Excuse
question.
me.
Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting with your fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are.
Huh?
They're in for $150 billion less because
Bobby's
Biden
asking,
and
how do you
you
get voting rights
don't
without being a
have the
citizen?
courage
Some
to
places
ask
have driver's
Europe, like
license,
I did with
automatic
NATO.
voter
They
registration.
paid billions and billions, hundreds
So
of billions of dollars.
you
when I
go
said,
get a
either
driver's
you pay up
license,
or we're
you're
not gonna
automatically
protect
registered
you
unless you
anymore.
opt
So
out.
that's maybe one of the reasons
So
they don't
many
like
people
me
don't
as
opt
much as
out,
they
and you get a
like
voter
weak
registration
people.
card, and you can vote.
But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion.
Well, I
They're
agree with
into
you, Neil,
100 to 150.
and Debbie.
They should be
Um,
forced to
They're
equalize.
doing a real
With that being said,
crappy
I wanna
job
get
of
the war
monitoring
settled.
that.
I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good
Jamie,
I
Russia
blackmailed-
is
They
an ally
respect
to Armenia now.
your president. Okay,
I
They
blackmailed
respect me.
Zelensky
They
once.
don't
I know him
respect
real well.
Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason?
Jamie,
Everybody
is Russia still an
blackmailed
ally
A
to
phone call
America?
in 2 years to Putin.
Armenia.
I don't remember.
Armenia,
I don't
I
remember when Russia
believe
was.
no.
That is
I
a
believe
war
Armenia,
they
that's
Eric,
dying
Armenia.
to be settled.
Yeah,
I will
I
get
believe
it
they are,
settled
right?
before
Oh,
I even become
Armenia,
president.
Armenia.
If I
No, not
win,
really.
when I'm president elect,
Russia
and
backed
what I'll do is I'll speak to one,
Turkey
I'll
during
speak to
the
the other,
Karabakh
I'll get them together.
Azerbaijan
That
war.
war would have
Oh,
never
okay.
happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin
And Armenians
after
and
I
Azeris are
left,
still
unfortunately
still not
left
friends,
because
right?
our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when
Yeah,
I saw him building
it's-
up soldiers,
you
he
can't-
did it
I don't think
after I
it's-
left.
You can't
I
draw
said,
that broad a
"Oh,
brush.
he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation." Well, it wasn't because Biden had
There's very
no
good people on
idea
both
how to
sides.
talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a
Don't kid
president
yourself,
that we don't
David.
even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't
Well,
even
that's a
know
good
if he's
question. That's a good
president.
question.
Clarify
They
here.
threw him out of a
That's a great
campaign like
question.
a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president
Mr.
that
President,
doesn't know he's alive.
your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war? Yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
That's a no.
Negotiate a
That's a
deal.
no.
Because we
Well, there's
have
not
to
gonna be a
stop
winning
all
or
of these
losing.
human lives.
Okay, but that's
There's
a
no
no.
way for
being
Ukraine to
destroyed.
win.
I want to take this to Vice
Okay,
President
so in other
Harris.
words,
I want to
no.
get your
It doesn't
thoughts
matter if
on,
they win or
support
lose. We
for
just need to end
Ukraine
it, is
in
what he's
this
saying.
moment.
Yes?
But also, as Commander-in-Chief,
Good
if
Lord.
elected, how
Pulling
would
a
you deal with
freaking
Vladimir
teeth
Putin?
here.
And would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as
Well,
Americans.
she's
Let's
right.
understand
She
what
is
happened here.
absolutely right. That
I
is exactly
actually
what he would do.
met with Zelensky
Someone
a
will.
few days before Russia
It will be given
I'm
up.
invaded,
not saying that's the
tried
wrong course of
through
action. I'm just saying,
force
like,
to
I don't
change
understand why he can't just own
territorial
that. Like,
boundaries
he
to
doesn't
defy
care.
one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence.
You know, it doesn't
about how he
matter,
could defend
Jamie. It doesn't
himself.
matter if
Days later,
it's
I went to
good if
NATO's
Russia
eastern
wins,
flank, to
because they're
Poland and
going to.
Romania. And
So
through
now it's just
the
a
work
question
that
of how
I
many
and
people
others
need to
did, we
die
brought 50
before they
countries together
have their
to
victory.
support
They're not.
Ukraine in
Ukraine's
its
not going. If the
righteous
longer it takes, not
defense.
like Ukraine's going
And
to get a better deal if they
because
just
of
keep
our
fighting.
support,
It's like no, the deal is
because
going to get worse
the
and worse and
air
worse,
defense, the
and
ammunition,
there's
the
just going to be more
artillery,
people dead.
the
So
javelins, the
why
Abrams tanks
Okay,
continue?
but
that we have
the
provided,
alternate
Ukraine stands
position
as
there
an
is that the
independent and
more
free
that we
country.
engage
If Donald
Russia
Trump
and
were
degrade their
president,
forces,
Putin would be
then
sitting
we're
in Kyiv
getting more
right
bang
now.
for our buck there.
And understand what that would mean.
I mean, I agree
Because
with your
Putin's agenda
end game
is
scenario,
not just
yes,
about Ukraine.
but right now it's like, oh,
Understand why the European allies
Remember,
and
war
our
is
Canada,
good for
NATO
an economy.
allies
War
are
is
so
has a
thankful
stimulating effect
that
on
you are no
economy.
longer president and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever
Oh,
known,
you're
which
speaking.
is
Oh,
NATO,
gotcha.
and what
Dash
we have
Crimea.
done
Gotcha. My
to
bad.
preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the
I thought all those
rest of
Crimeans were
Europe,
so excited to
starting
be
with
reunited
Poland. And why don't you
with
tell
their
the
Russian homeland.
800,000
That's
Polish
what
Americans
Putin was saying.
right here in
They
Pennsylvania
voted for
how
it. It's like
quickly
80%.
you would
Yeah,
give
they
up
voted for it. Yeah,
for the
exactly.
sake
Don't
of
you believe in
favor
democracy, lady?
and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Oh,
Vice President
like a
Harris, thank
like
you.
a
We've heard
dog.
from both of you
Like
on
a
Ukraine
dog.
tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to
That's
respond
what we
to
should have
something
had.
you
We
said
should have been
earlier.
eating
And
hot dogs.
please,
We're like,
I'll give you a minute here.
We messed up, man.
Putin
We
Next
was
messed
time,
up.
next
sitting
time.
in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have
Quiet,
been
please.
sitting
Quiet,
in
please.
Moscow, much happier
Excuse
than
me.
he is right
Excuse me.
now. But eventually, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that.
Well, he's
And
100% right. That's
eventually,
why
maybe
they
he'll
will
use them,
win.
and maybe he
At
hasn't
some
been that
point,
threatening.
they're like, all
let's
right,
go
I'm done with this.
antagonize
have
the
that.
nuclear country.
Something we don't
Yeah,
even like
let's
to
exactly.
talk about.
I mean,
Nobody likes
Great
to talk
idea.
about it.
He's
But
it's a
just so you
he's
understand, they sent her to negotiate peace
it's hard to
before
argue
this war
against this point,
started.
man.
3 days later,
Playing with
he
fire.
went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary.
They used the wrong
They
words.
sent
We have the
her
most
in to
beautiful words, though.
negotiate with
We have the best words.
Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later.
Vice
And
President,
that's the
Uh-oh.
kind of talent we have with her.
Harris
She's
Walsh just
worse than
emailed
Biden.
me now.
In my opinion, I think he's the worst
Oh.
president in the history of our country. She
Vice
goes
President
down
Harris and
as
Governor
the
Walsh
worst
are facing
vice
the biggest
president
smear
in the history
campaign
of our
yet,
country.
full
But
of
let me tell you
lies about
something.
their record and
She is
attacks
a
on, of all
horrible
things, the
negotiator.
crowd size
They
of our
sent her
events.
in to
That's
negotiate
why
as
it's so
soon as
important for you to donate.
did the invasion.
Donate
President
$15.
Trump, thank you. You did bring up something.
Donate
You said you went to
$15.
negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
The reality
We're
is
buddies.
it has been about
Count
standing
my
as
fingers,
America
all 5.
always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander in chief, and the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility.
You know, Jamie, if he
in
hadn't
terms of
resisted arrest, it would have
ensuring
just
that
all
there
gone
is
away a lot
stability
faster.
and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Bobby.
Oh,
Trump did the
good
most
to know.
amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said
Russ,
it was one of
check
the
out
most
Ashley's
incredible jobs
last
that he's
post
ever
there.
seen done.
Thank you.
What
That should be
really
our
is
next
America?
Afghanistan. It
That
came up in
should
the
be our
first
next
hour of the
podcast. She's
debate.
getting all mad
And we
on us, but
witnessed
that's
a
I
poignant
think that
moment
really
today
is
on
the
Capitol
question
Hill,
at this
honoring the
point.
soldiers who died.
What
in the chaotic
is it that
withdrawal
we're
from
trying to
Afghanistan. I
say?
do want to ask the Vice President, do you
Excellent
believe you
question.
bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agree
Ooh.
with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated
All right, Ash, we're
one of
going to
the
do it.
weakest
We're going to do
deals
it
you
next
can
week or two.
imagine. He calls himself a deal
Russ and I have
maker.
been talking about
Even
that
his
anyway.
national security advisor said
You
it
got a
was a
deal.
weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He
Jamie.
bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization
Pulled
called
out
the
in the worst
Taliban.
way.
The negotiation involved
It's
the
awful when
Taliban
you pull
getting
out in the worst way.
5,000
It's just-
terrorists, Taliban terrorists released. And get this, get this. And the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the
Blah,
importance
blah,
of
blah.
American
Sacred, a
diplomacy,
sacred
where we
place.
invite and receive
A beautiful
respected
place full
world
of hope
leaders.
and
And
joy.
This
I heard that
former
you needed
president,
to negotiate
as
with your
president,
enemies, not
invited
necessarily your
them
friend. I mean, I don't know, whatever.
to
No, you
Camp
don't. You
David
don't.
because
You
he
just
does
fund
This is
not
like
begin
this is like
the
when all the
enemies of
Republicans
your
were piling
enemies.
on Obama for saying he would talk to
of the
you know
president
dictators.
of the
It's like,
United States to
well,
be commander
no,
Who else
I
are you
wouldn't
gonna
talk
talk
to
to?
dictators. I'd bomb them.
And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with
thank
the
you.
Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within
I
Afghanistan.
got involved
They
with
don't
the
bother
Taliban.
doing that because, you know, they
I don't
deal with the
know.
wrong people all the
I don't know
time.
if that bumper sticker is
But
going to
I got
sell very well.
involved. And
I got
Abdul was
involved.
the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore.
Don't do it,
we'll have
Abdul.
problems.
Don't
And he
do
said,
it.
why do you send me a
The
picture of
Taliban
my
has
house? I said, you're going to have
changed
to
a couple of
figure
their
that out,
positions. They're
Abdul.
now
And
allowing
for
women to be
18
taught to
months,
read.
we had nobody killed. We
How
did have an
progressive.
agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo.
I mean,
It's a
you'll
very
get
good
beat
agreement.
up if you
The
talk to
reason
someone
it was
other
good,
than your
it
family
was-
members.
we were
But
getting out. We
you
would have been
can
out
read.
faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers.
Only
We
the
wouldn't
books
have
that I
left
say.
Many Americans
Don't do
behind,
it.
and we wouldn't have left. We wouldn't have
Don't
left
do it, Abdul.
$85 billion worth
That
of
Why are you
Paul?
showing me a
beautiful
picture of my
military
house? I
equipment
love that
behind.
story.
And
Why are you
just to
showing me a picture of my house? Oh, it's a beautiful
they
house. It'd be a shame if something
blew
happened
it.
to it.
The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of
wanna
our
move
country.
on.
And by the way, that's why Russia
We all do.
attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you
Wow.
recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words. So I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black.
I don't know. They were just my
that she
words.
put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her.
Oh my God.
That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
So that's
I think it's, I mean,
it's an
honestly, I think
interesting
it's
tactic.
a tragedy that we have
I don't know what
someone
I
who
said.
Well,
wants to be president who
no,
has
because it's
consistently over the course of his career
it's like the Elizabeth Warren thing.
attempted to use
Like,
race
what
to
are you?
divide the
Well,
American
if
people.
it's useful to
You know, I
be
do believe
this,
that the
then I'm
vast
this. If
majority
it's
of
useful to be
us
that, I'm
know that
that.
we have so
Right?
much more in common than what
So
separates us, and we don't want
when it's useful for
this
her to
kind
be
of
Indian
approach
American,
that is
that's
just
what she
constantly
says.
trying to divide us, and
You
especially
know,
by
so it's kind of
race. And
like
let's remember
she's using
how Donald Trump
identity
started. He was
as a thing. Like, look at
a
this. You know,
land.
I
He
think
owned
it's an
land,
interesting.
he
I
owned
don't know.
buildings,
I think it's an interesting
and
approach.
he was
I don't know if it'll
incarcerated
work, but
because
I gotta
like
I gotta
he
part
refused
company
to
with you on
rent
that one. I mean, she's
she's
obviously
saying whatever
black.
she
to
wants to
black
say.
families. Let's remember, this is the
She's
She's
same
got a
Jamaican.
black
Have to
dad
make
and
it.
an Indian mom.
who took out a
Yeah,
full
she's
page ad in
Jamaican.
the
Have
New
to
York
make it.
Times
Exactly,
calling for
man.
the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent. The Central Park
Just like Trump is
5
Polish, dude. I mean, it's not a big deal.
took out a full page ad
Is he?
calling for their
I don't know.
execution. This
What
is
are you
the
doing?
same
I
individual
thought he
I
was.
don't know.
I
I
thought he
don't
had
I don't know. I don't know what I
Birthed
said. I don't know what I
lies
said.
about the first Black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better
No,
than
Obama
that.
was also
Want
a
better
white
than
president.
this. Want someone who
He was both.
understands as I do. I travel
Dude, you know
our
how it
country.
goes. You know how it goes.
We see in
He was
each
both.
other a
Can be both.
friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time
I'd say that's
who tell
true,
me,
and yet
can we please just have discourse
uh,
about
I'd say it's
how we're going
definitely
to invest in the
the
aspirations and the
the people on
ambitions
the
and the
left that are
dreams
all
of the
like
American people?
hyper
Knowing that
segmenting people.
regardless of people's color or the language their
I don't know.
grandmother speaks, we
Whatever.
all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she
Why
just
am I
said.
thinking of that
Going back
that song
many
about that?
years, when a lot of people,
They're
including
snatching
Mayor
up your
Bloomberg,
people.
agreed with me on
Oh,
the
yeah.
Central
They're
Park 5.
they're raping
Many
everybody
people
around
said
here.
They pled
Yeah.
guilty.
Hide your
And I said,
kids.
well,
Hide your
they pled
wife.
guilty. They
Yeah.
Hide your
badly hurt
kids.
a person, killed a
They
person
raping
ultimately.
everybody.
And if they pled guilty,
They
then
snatching up
pled,
your
"We're
people."
not guilty.
They're snatching up
This
your
is a
people. That's
person
right.
that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago.
Man, that guy became
because
rich
there's
from that.
nothing
That was
now. I built
amazing.
one of the greatest
No?
economies in the history of the
Well,
world, and I'm going to build
it
it again.
seems
It's
like
gonna
we
be
got a
bigger, better, and
rapist.
stronger. But they're destroying our economy.
You are
They
so
have no
dumb.
idea what a good
Yeah,
economy is.
So
we have your
dumb.
fingerprints and everything. We're gonna
Every
find
We
you.
got your
policy. And
fingerprints.
remember this.
We're gonna find you.
She is Biden.
That guy
And
was
she's trying to
great.
get away from
That was
Biden.
so
I don't know
beautiful.
the gentleman.
That
She says,
interview.
she is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had. A horrible economy because inflation.
Bobby, I'm
has
with you on
made
the
it
fact
so
check,
bad
bro. It's not the
that
worst
you can't
inflation
get
we've
away
ever
with that.
Thank you. Time's
no.
up, Lindsay.
That would
What
belong
is
to
the
Jimmy
worst?
Carter.
Clearly,
The work was under
I
Carter.
am not Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country.
I'm the
One
change.
who believes
The change
in
we can
what is
believe in.
possible. One who brings a sense of optimism about what we can
Joy.
do instead of
Joy.
always disparaging
Joy.
the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan.
Did he just
To
roll his
give
eyes?
startup
I think he did.
businesses $50,000 tax deduction to pursue their ambitions,
None of that's
their
gonna pass.
innovation, their
None of
ideas,
that's real.
their hard work. I have
She's
a
not going to be
plan,
in charge. It's
$6,000
just,
for young families.
She has a
for
plan,
the
bro.
first year
She has
of
a
your
plan.
child's life.
I don't know.
To
It
help
just
you
it's really
in
hard
that
for
most
me because it's
critical
like
stage of your
her
child's
whole
development.
candidacy
I
is
have a
about
plan that is
the
about
power of the
allowing
party
people to be
selecting
able to
her so that the
pursue
same people
what
can
has been
stay in
fleeting
charge
in
that have
terms
been
of
in
the
charge.
American dream
Like
by offering
she has
help
nothing to
with
say. There's
down
nothing
payment
she
of
could say that's important
$25,000
because
down payment
she's just going to be
assistance for
trotted out, given
first-time
the
home
words to say,
buyers.
put back
That's
away.
the kind of conversation I believe, David,
You know,
that people really want tonight, as
eh,
opposed to a
something
conversation
started
that is
happening when Biden
constantly
became
about
president.
belittling
where
and
he would
name-calling.
say something,
Let's turn
and then
the
you'd hear
page
you'd
and
hear
move
in the
forward.
article
Thank
like,
you.
"Oh,
Let's
Biden
turn
said
it
this,"
forward.
and
Let's
it's
turn
like
it
the
forward.
White House then
President Trump.
distanced
Clarified.
themselves from his comments, and it's like,
To defund the
who is the
police.
White?
She
I
has
thought
a
he was the
plan
White
to
House, but it's like no,
confiscate
like the
everybody's
actual
gun.
President,
people in
She
charge.
has a
you have to
plan
move
Like
on.
it was just sort of
allow
everybody
fracking
knew.
in Pennsylvania
Like
or
they said it.
anywhere else.
Okay.
That's
Thank
what
you.
her plan is.
It's
So
gonna be
just
more of
I
that.
just
Like
need
if
to
you want, well, the
explain
White
that
House
the
clarified
president has
No,
said
these
something
comments.
twice that I need
Walk
to
back
respond
the
I'm
statement
sorry,
made by the
we're gonna move
president.
on, Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care. Always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up, they wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be? Never going to be great. Or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in this
The best people.
administration.
Before I fired
Read
them.
about the bad ones. We had some
They were the
really
best.
bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do
But I
save it
digress.
and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing, but it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good
Yeah, who
as
knew,
it can
Em?
be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan.
He saved the
Concepts of a
ACA.
plan. I'm not president right now, but if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better
If
and
we
less
come up with
expensive.
something,
And there are
I might change
concepts
it
and
if it's better.
options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice
Yeah.
President Harris, in 2017,
I have a
you
secret
supported
plan to
Bernie
get out of
Sanders'
Vietnam.
proposal to do away with private
You can't
insurance
get
and
rid of
create
it.
a government-run health
I
care
can't tell you
system.
about it though.
2
It's
years
secret.
later, you proposed a
No, you
plan
can't
that
get rid of it.
included
No one
a
will get rid
private
of it.
insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I
It will stay there
absolutely support, and over the
until
last 4 years, Vice
the
President,
country goes
private
bankrupt.
healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need
Grow
to
it.
respond
See,
to
grow
a
it. It
previous
needs to be a
claim
bigger
that
share of the
the former
economy.
president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking, and then this business about taking everyone's guns
I
away.
made very clear my
Jim
position
Walz
about
and I are
fracking.
both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
Exactly right.
As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time. When I will never forget the early
It's
morning
not the
hours
best this country has to
when
offer.
the
It's the best that the
voted the
parties
United
will
States Senate.
allow to run.
And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged.
Oh, she's
as
a
being-
McCain fan now.
You don't like him,
I'm
you
telling you,
said
these
at the time because
it's like
he
the
got
war people
caught.
all
He was
love each
an
other.
American hero. The
Cheney,
late, great
McCain.
McCain, I will never
He's like a
forget that
Republican
night.
from the early
Walked onto
2000s.
the Senate floor and said, "No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan." And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child
Deny,
had asthma,
deny.
if someone was a breast cancer
I remember.
survivor, if a grandparent
This is
had
a great point,
diabetes.
bro.
And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the
I
last
mean-
4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices.
It's a
on
cluster
behalf of
now, but
you,
I
the
mean,
American
it's
people.
definitely
Donald
better
Trump
than it
said he was
was.
going to allow Medicare to
Yep.
negotiate drug
100%.
prices. He never did. We did.
Melissa
And now we have
Gilson,
capped the
Clint
cost of
Taylor.
insulin at $35 a month.
Exactly,
Second,
man. I
Vice
can go down a
President,
whole
we have
list. I
capped
mean,
the
that's
cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice
Pass this
President
prologue.
Harris, thank
and
you.
tell
Emily,
me
if you
where
got
Donald
somebody
Trump
like
stands on
that,
I want to move to an
have them
issue
call
that's
me.
important for a
She
lot
made a
of
mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve
Well, that's true.
private
It's called
insurance for people,
nationalized
private
healthcare.
medical insurance.
Yep.
That's another thing she doesn't want to get.
President
People
Trump.
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard.
Jim, I'm
and
still
made
money,
racked
up,
and they
bro.
want it private. She
Not
wants
tomorrow.
everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate
I'm marking
change.
drug prices
President
on
Trump,
that.
with regard to the environment, you say that we
Yeah,
have to have
just have
clean
him
air and
call me.
clean water.
We'll
Vice
do a quick
President
shot for
Harris,
him.
you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Climate
Well,
change.
the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very
True.
real. You ask
He did.
anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America
We
care
can deal with
deeply
it
about this
by
issue. And I
bringing
am
the
proud that as vice
temperatures
president
down.
over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We
Dude,
have
no, you
invested
haven't.
in clean
Those
energy.
are
because
fake.
that we are
Ah.
opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going
Come
to create.
on,
She won't.
man.
She won't get fact
Who
check
else
on it.
manufacturing jobs.
If you notice, they
And
have
I'm
yet to
also
fact
proud
check her on
to have the
anything.
endorsement of the United
Well,
Auto
actually,
Workers and Sean Fain,
the
who
Department of
also
Labor just
know
rolled those
that
numbers
part
back.
of building a clean energy economy.
They know, but they're
includes
not
Where
gonna
you at,
fact check on
Kristen?
it.
Where you at,
in
Kristen?
American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and
He looks
opening
bored.
up auto plants,
Yeah.
and
He
not
just looks.
closing them like
He looks
happened under
bored.
Donald
Why am I
Trump.
here?
President
Why am I?
Harris,
Why
thank
have
you.
I
That
been
didn't
doing
happen
this?
under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building
China.
these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable, but we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse.
Hard to argue with that
you
one.
know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from
Is that
all
Hunter
these
Biden? Do we
different
get-
Hunter
countries.
Biden.
And then you wonder, why is
Do we get
this
that, or does he have to
war
actually
that's
say
a
Hunter
bingo.
Biden?
on Ukraine, China?
That's bingo.
Oh,
Why is
Hunter.
it-
Hunter.
why did he
Oh,
get
you got one.
$3.5 million dollars from the mayor
But he
of
didn't
Mine-
say Hunter Biden though, right?
Why
He
did he
did.
get? Why did she pay him?
He said his son.
$3.5 million.
That
This
doesn't
is a
count?
crooked administration.
That's what I was
and
asking.
they're selling our country.
Now that I
down
know
the
that's
tubes.
bingo for you, I'm
President
gonna have
Trump,
to
thank
say
you.
no. It's got to
Thank
be. It's got to
We'll
be
be right
Hunter
back
Biden.
All
with
right,
closing
all
statements
right.
from both of our candidates.
You
An
win.
historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
That's right. I'll give it to you, buddy. Take the silver medal.
All right, man. So halftime report. Where are we at, gents?
Oh, we're almost over. Then we got the
What are you
closing
talking about?
statement.
That's not the halftime. That's it, dude. Closing
No,
statements.
yeah. But I mean, where are we at? Where are we at?
So, Dan, do you want to go first, or do you want me to dive in?
No, jump in. Go for it.
So I think it's I think they kind of did about equal. I think maybe they were both pretty rambly. They both said a lot of false things. I think we have kind of a combination of Kamala Harris pretending like she hasn't been part of the White House for the last 4 years, and Trump pretending like he knows what he's going to do if he gets in office, which it's like, oh, on day one I'll get it solved. Like, well, solve how? He doesn't know. So anyway, I think it's kind of a mess. So kind of a wash as far as I'm concerned. I think as far as how it plays in the race as a whole, I don't know that it changes much, but I thought the same thing last time. So you should probably not believe that it changes.
That's right, man. You said it wasn't
Yeah.
gonna. I was like, no,
Like,
he's toast. Yeah. All right. What do you think, Danny?
Well, first of all, I'm with John Wayne Sutherland, and I think we should talk about this Baywatch commercial I was just on.
I
But,
agree. It would be way
outside of
more
that-
interesting.
Outside of that, I gotta say, Russ, I tend to disagree with you. I think I'm not a huge fan of of the candidates that we have. It's that old adage of the lesser of two evils, but I don't think there's any comparison. I think she did a great job. Honestly, I think that as far as what I wanted to see, if I've got to pick somebody that's that's going to run that I feel is going to be able to do the job, and I have to pick between the two, I've only got two choices. I think it's a very, very cut and dry, easy vote. I think that she's articulate. I think she knows how to push his buttons, and he is easily pushed. The biggest thing people were looking for in the Biden Trump debate was just to see that Biden was sharp and on top of it.
Alive.
And she was well beyond that. I mean, she was very articulate. You can say that she's been wishy-washy on things that she's said in the past or whatever else, but we also know that 90% of what Trump says is usually factually untrue. So I think right there, she's already got a huge edge, and I agree with a lot of the places that she stands. Again, even if she's vacillated to get there, I'm on the same page as her. So I would say that she took it.
I think I agree with Harris on almost everything as long as I pick which time period she said it. And I think I could probably gerrymander, 80% agreement myself.
Well, good. I know who we're both voting for then. That's fantastic.
No, I'm probably voting for just because, like I said, I'm an accelerationist. I think that we can't handle another 4 years the same people being in charge. And so we should definitely keep going.
So you said you're voting for her or not?
Oh,
for
yeah.
her?
No, for her. Yeah.
Remember, Russ's plan is to vote for the most damaging candidate.
I remember
the most disruptive.
Yeah. I do.
Yeah. So like, I think we need more inflation. We need to get to the point where there are like food riots and, people are not able to afford things. And I think we need like a full French Revolution style situation. And so I'm definitely voting for whatever is going on now to keep going on.
Storm the Bastille. Free the prisoners.
Yeah.
I tell you this, they made it.
What?
They made a.
We got a lot of late arrivals. A lot of good.
Debbie, he is not kidding. He is not kidding. That is his point of view. In fact, we covered this on a podcast a few weeks ago. But Russell's point of view is that this current system is so corrupt and so paid for by big money and special interests and run by military industrial complex, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that the sooner it crashes and burns, the sooner we can get to something that's actually representative government. That's up to you to decide whether you agree with that position or not. That's where he's at. I think tactically, just my opinion on this is they made a huge mistake. Republicans made a huge mistake by painting her. And I said this a few weeks ago. It made a huge mistake painting her reluctance to have an interview as that she was scared and stupid and it was not articulate. What they should have done is painted her as scared to have a debate because she didn't have any idea what kind of position she was going to take, which would have been a much more effective line of attack because the bar for her was so low that
tonight, two very
easily cleared.
One that is focused on the future.
It's an old mistake.
And the other that is focused on the past and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting
Shovel ready.
seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never
Kamala Harris
asked
for the
a
people. I
victim
said a long
or
time ago,
witness, are you a
that is her
Republican or a
campaign
Democrat?
slogan.
The
If
only
she'll
thing
take
I
it.
ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who
okay?
cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She
If
should
he would have stayed
leave
on
right
that
now,
topic
go
all
down
night,
to
that would have been a winner.
beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC
Very
News
optimistic. Thank you.
presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
Thank you, David.
Are they going to shake? Hold on, they going to shake again or no?
They're not going to show that.
No, I don't think so.
And we are here live on ABC with our
go.
post-debate comments. I'm Martha Raddatz. There's a lot of debate from the economy to abortion to Afghanistan. They
Blah,
had
blah,
it all,
blah,
and it was
blah, blah, blah,
historic.
blah, blah.
John Carl,
Blah, 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 blah,
fire-
blah, blah. All right. Well,
All right, Bobby, with some notes on unemployment. We're a solid 20% lower than we've been historically. Jessica, yeah, actually, I don't know if you noticed, he was very tough, hard pressed to shake her hand when she walked right up to him to shake his hand at the beginning of the night.
He's the first president to not show up at the transfer of power, and I don't know when since they started doing that. He's got zero interest in in any kind of what is it called? Comity, not comedy, but comity,
Mhm.
I'm a T.
comity.
Well, I think the reason for that is if you look at the way the two parties have more or less just continued their traditions of the previous party. Like if you look at, say, the Obama '08 presidency, his first term, there was a lot of push to prosecute George W. Bush for potential war crimes or open investigation, and
Dude, I
he
was in favor of that.
yeah, well, a lot of people were,
Yeah,
but he
yeah.
refused to do so. He was on record saying, "No, if we do that, then future presidents will, won't be able to take action. They'll be afraid of being investigated endlessly, so on." And not only did he not investigate or do anything with, he continued almost all the same policies involving Iraq and Afghanistan. And so you look at it, and you're like, huh. I mean, like now we've got 8 years beyond it. It's almost like you look at the Bush slash Obama years, right? 16 years of more or less uninterrupted government, and you say, okay, why wouldn't they shake hands? They're on the same side.
Yeah. So
There's like that, like Obama, when he was doing the healthcare revamp, took a Republican model for it. It's the same stuff. I mean, okay, we get slightly different things with Supreme Court justices or some of the red meat issues of cultural war stuff. But as far as like who's getting paid and where the money's coming from and where it's going, it's basically the same. So they should shake hands. The difference here is, I think, with Trump, it's like, no, it would actually be different.
But
And
Russell, he runs on a platform of divisiveness.
yeah,
I mean, he's run on it since he started. There was never anything. I mean, name a time that he was in any of his campaigns, either one, at any time where he was anything short of divisive with anybody. Hillary,
yeah. No, I know
Obama.
that. But you're thinking of it. Yeah, Obama, McCain's funeral. Yeah, because they're all on the same team. For them, the blue and the red, Democrat, Republican, those aren't real categories. Those are just sort of flavors, but everybody's on the same side. Everybody's working together. So of course they're going to show up at each other's funerals, and yes, they have these nasty campaigns. But then once the campaign's over, like Romney, he loses, and everyone's like, he was a fine public servant, and it's like, because it doesn't matter, right? We're all on the same side.
Right.
The thing with Trump, and the reason that I think his presidency in 2016 was so interesting, is that it kind of broke a lot of those things. So it broke a lot of that within the Republican Party. And you notice now you have all of the neocons that were firmly entrenched in the Bush White House now switching over. They're Democrats. They were in favor of Biden. Now they're in favor of Harris, and so on. You've got it's like, oh, I have this long list of Republicans. It's like, yeah, those are the ones that were all on the pro-war side, military industrial complex, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the Trump presidency kind of revealed that to everyone. And for those of you those of us who are watching, we were like, oh, look, now it's really obvious that there's been kind of an establishment that's been asking us to choose between, like heads I win, tails you lose. You're getting the same thing. You're not going to be able to vote against the Iraq war, for example. Both people, want it. You're not going to be able to vote for all sorts of stuff because the bipartisanship is actually much deeper than you would be able to tell from the news. So yeah, no one's gonna when Trump leaves office. What do? Well, let's prosecute him to death. Like, let's make sure that he's, we're gonna vilify him. We're gonna do everything. If they had just left him alone, I doubt he would have. I doubt he would have been able to be the candidate again. For 2024. But yeah, he's not a political insider, as Debbie's saying. The real change there is that he would come in and fire a bunch of people. And that's why everybody in that ecosystem is united in making sure he stays out. Because the ones that are benefiting from staying in that ecosystem are benefiting at the American people's expense, which I think is great. They should keep doing it. Run it into the ground as quickly as possible. Like, we're definitely at the stage where you're just waiting.
Why do you think? Why do you think that? I do agree with your premise that that and really I think it goes back to and we've been talking about this for months now, and I've had a chance to think about it, and I agree with you in this sense that there is a probably going back to World War II, the post World War II order, and we call it the rules-based international order, right? The SWIFT banking system, the petrodollar, the but definitely American hegemony. I mean, we can go down a whole list of different things that definitely benefit the, let's call, ruling class, right? And those people, they don't care about abortion rights. They don't care about trans rights. They don't care about
in the 60s. They didn't care. Schools. They didn't care about race relations in the 60s.
They don't care about race relations. They don't care about any of that stuff. What they care about is keeping the petrodollar preeminent, keeping the American empire functioning. Okay. And military industrial complex that funds that. So I do agree with that zoomed out view. What I'm curious about though is, why do you think that doesn't benefit the American people? Like, why would that not? So like when England was, the British Empire, or when Rome was the Roman Empire, or whatever, the citizens of that empire tend to thrive and do pretty well just because they're on the ship in front is making the wake, right? Everybody else got to deal with it. We're in the boat. So okay. So in this particular scenario, yes, we've got high inflation driven by immigration and diluting of the monetary policy, et cetera. You have all these flooding of immigrants in order to drive down wages because that increases productivity and increases profits, et cetera. I understand all of that, and I buy into that entire premise. What I don't really line up with, or I'm having kind of trouble getting my brain around from your perspective, is why is that bad for the American citizen?
That's a really good question, and I think what you see if you watch the trajectory in America, post-war America, is that at first it's not bad. At first it's great, right? These like a company like Lockheed employs thousands of people and does amazing R&D, and like, sure, if you're like, oh, the 1970s Lockheed, or how did it help America? Yes. Now, so I'm not saying that the initial stages aren't great, because the initial stages are. It's that once that structure gets, and that ecosystem gets ossified, it starts to reserve more and more of the benefits of its structure for those within its borders. So you bring up healthcare a lot, right? Think of the amount of public dollars spent on healthcare, not private, not from people buying insurance, the amount of public dollars being spent on healthcare. Do you think that the Affordable Care Act gave the American people the greatest benefit for the public dollars?
Of course not.
Even relative to other systems that not ideal systems, currently existing systems in other parts of the world.
Of course not. And I mean, that's self-evident. I've made that argument back then. Yes.
Right. So now, like,
however, was it better than what we had at the time?
No, that's fine.
Objectively,
okay.
yes. Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. But if you look at something like the Affordable Care Act and the insurance structure that it creates, the benefits of that, yes, the American people get some of the benefits, but the disproportional amount of those benefits get allocated to not the American people, right, as a whole. They get the shareholders
to the shareholders of the drug companies, exactly.
Merck, or
Yeah.
or the hospital systems that can charge more and more money because it's diffusely paid for by all this other stuff.
Sure.
So okay, so like as you see this kind of expand more and more, the American people get less and less and less of the benefit of the American empire. And at some point you reach a stage, and this is like what happens towards the latter end of the Roman Empire. At some point you reach a stage where, so what that the Roman Empire is so powerful and we have this incredible military and that senator over there is filthy rich. None of us are getting any of it. Like we're basically slaves. Our laborers, we're replaceable labor to feed a powerful upper class.
I mean, you could look at it that way, but you could also look at it as, compare us to any other middle income citizen of any other country on earth. And I mean, I wouldn't trade places with any of them in the sense that, I mean, I happen to be a citizen inside the vehicle that is the, reigning global empire for the moment. And I agree, like, yeah, all empires collapse. And when it does, it's not good. But I mean, that's where I'm kind of like your point of view. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying where I have a challenge aligning with it is when it collapses, the upheaval is going to be more on us, like the citizen. And like, for example, you just had Brexit happen. And you can see all the. There's some good things that came from Brexit, but the vast majority of economically for the citizens of England has not been a win by any stretch of the imagination. Now it could be a win 20 years from now, but right this minute they're the ones feeling the pain. Now over here, I can read about their pain in my newspaper. Right? Mm-hmm. They're going to be reading about our pain in their newspaper when our system collapses. And I think that's
Well, look at something like. So here's one that RFK Jr. brought up. And I'm not a huge fan of the stuff he says on medicine, but I think this is an interesting point. So right now in America, we have a childhood obesity epidemic. Obesity is connected with a huge number of comorbidities. It's one of the, like if you're a kid and I wanted to make you unhealthy, probably the best way to do that is to have you carry around way too much adipose tissue.
Yeah. Okay.
So, okay. The solution to this, an excess calorie and storage problem is probably something like having better exercise availability within K-12, having food that's more affordable than, fresh foods that's more affordable than snack foods. There's all sorts of stuff that can be done. The government's current approach that they're really talking about is figuring out how to get Ozempic on the
exactly
Medicare, so that we can spend billions of dollars on Ozempic,
buying more drugs. I 100% agree with you. Okay.
So it's like so we say, okay, here's our taxpayer dollars at work. Here's inflation going up, in order for us to pay for things. Who's going to benefit?
Certainly not the children.
Not the children. We're going to get them hooked on drugs as early as possible, so they'll now be lifetime customers. We're just like they're just being offered on a silver platter, and our tax dollars are going to be
just like the Aztecs.
Yeah, let's go chop them up for the gods, But that's just like one example, and you can look through this like look through some of the shovel ready projects from the Biden infrastructure thing that got passed, and like, oh, billions of dollars went to this, billions, and you look at the outcome, and you're like, the benefit is not to any of us, like any of us sitting here. Like your tax dollars are simply being wasted, as far as you're concerned, but they are benefiting other people, and so at some point, that's just going to accelerate. It's going to keep going until it can't.
So let me
your point is better rather sooner than later. Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was going to throw this out. So CNN just came out with an article, and it's very interesting. I want to get your guys' comments on this.
Okay.
Debate takeaway: Harris came on stage with a plan, throw Trump off his game. He took the bait. Thoughts?
Agreed.
Seems fair. Yeah, that seems fair to me.
Yeah, is that healthy to to be able to, I actually find it really funny because we all look for those kind of things. We always think, be great if I could throw out this lure and get this guy to bite. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I got to be honest, I am constantly shocked by the fact that he always bites on that cast.
He's right? So predictable. So this is his whole thing where he's like, oh, foreign leaders are scared of me, etc. Dude, foreign leaders, I remember reading the headlines and all that when you were in office. I mean, they thought you were a joke. All we got to do is flatter this guy, say he's awesome, and the next thing you know, he's just going to like take his foot off the gas and, oh, yeah, well, I'm in a love relationship with this person, you know? And I mean, so that to me, the bigger thing than that, Dan, is that the who wins and loses this debate is all about who was able to throw the other person off their game, who got this point, who looked better here, etc., without any contemplation whatsoever to what are these people actually going to do when they get in office. We already know she has no plan whatsoever and will basically do whatever her plan is to say whatever she needs to say to get. I mean, that's obvious. She didn't even have anything on her website until, literally yesterday in terms of policy positions. And then Jessica made a great question, or maybe it was Debbie, said, why did he look so unprepared? Like, why? And she's a Trump fan. And she's like, I don't understand. Is that an act like that? He doesn't know no, he doesn't know what he's going to do. He just knows that if I stick my finger in your eye, sorry, Loa just said, you're yelling, the kids are asleep. Sorry. If I stick my finger in your eye, then enough American people will be like, oh, he's with us, he's fighting for us, etc. I'll give Russell this point too, and it's not really giving Russell. It's just but to his point of view, right? Is that I think that this post-war order, whatever you want to call it, right? Over the last, what are we talking about now? 70 years, right? The people that have nurtured this and put this together and taken this where it is, like they have been very careful, to make sure that we have that. I think Jessica said it earlier in the thread, like, is this really the best that we can? No, it's not the best we can do. These are the best candidates that have wriggled their way through this process to be the least offensive to the ruling elites who are actually running the show, and with the exception of Trump. Trump, nobody wants Trump. Nobody in charge wants Trump, right? The only people that want Trump are the people that are disaffected in this economy who are like, screw everything. None of this is benefiting me. And I mean, at least, he is going to stick it to the man like the way that they've stuck it to me. That's literally, he's just an avatar for all of the
time for them to get laid off.
Time for them to get laid off. Exactly. You're fired, right? Exactly. That is exactly what he represents. And that is what, like none of them thought that he was going to make it through that. I mean, that's why you have all these super delegates and all this other kind of stuff to control. We're never going to let Bernie or anybody that's in any way like bringing any fresh new ideas or could in any way challenge the status quo at all. Is nobody's getting through here. And somehow he wriggled through. And now it's just a fact of like, he's not going to go away. I mean, they're throwing everything at him and he's just basically like, screw you, I'm not going anywhere. And so there is something in that. I think that I get why people are attracted to that. It's not just a certain element. I'm attracted to it. I mean, there's a certain element of that is like, finally, right? But I also don't think that like, okay, well, once this guy's in office, it's not like he had like amazing plans to like make everything better. He just, enriched himself and I mean, like that's what he did. And so, and yes, he benefited from some low inflation and everything else. But come on, every metric that he used to say, oh, here's why the economy is so great. Stock market, look at the stock market, dude. The stock market's over 40,000 right now. Like, I mean, it never made it over 30,000 when he was in. I mean, like it's so every metric that he uses to say that, oh, the economy was so great under me. Yeah, inflation's been terrible. It has been terrible, and part of that is because of the PPP and all the other kind of money that you guys funneled out there when you were president. And yes, Joe Biden's doubled down, tripled down. I mean, completely irresponsible, both of them. So to me, it's like, what I want to do is basically do this to both of them. It is a disaster, and then we're going to sit here and debate on this like, oh, well, she really nailed it for females. Give me a break. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I just, oh,
Did you ever
I'm,
did you ever see that movie on
I'm almost
HBO?
done with my bottle. I'm going to go get another one in a minute.
Did you ever see that movie on HBO about the Sarah Palin vice president candidacy? It's got Woody Harrelson in it, and I can't remember who played Palin. Oh, was it Julianne Moore?
If it was Tina Fey, I'm going to go rent it right now.
It's really good. But one of the things that they do is they kept this kind of behind the scenes with the debate, because she debated Joe Biden in 2008.
Right.
And
oh, there you go again, Joe.
there you go again, Joe. And the thing that they showed was that, like, she just didn't know anything. And so they're sitting there going like, okay, well, we can't do a debate because, like, there's too much stuff to try to get her caught up with, that, there's so much complicated things going on.
She's so ignorant. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, as fine as the governor of a sparsely populated state, but not for this. So they're like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you 10 speeches. Each one is about 1.5 minutes long. Here are the points that you need to make. Now, if you get a question that is not about this, you can maybe start to answer it, but then be like, but the real issue, and then come back to one of these, right? And so they're watching the debate, behind the scenes, and they're just like, you just watch them, like, oh no, she said that, whatever. And then there are some things like, well, I want to go back to this, like, that's right, pivot, yes, and then, like, at the end, they're all high-fiving each other, because, like, that's really all you need the candidate to do, right? They sort of cracked the code. You don't need to know anything. You just need to have your speech set up. And, like, Trump came in with his speech was ready to go about illegal immigration is destroying the country. She came in with her speech ready to go about, Project 2025. That's his secret plan. He Handmaid's Tale all over again. All this other stuff. And yeah, that's all you really need. Yeah, you didn't. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Scott, you're not glad you missed, bro, because you would have been massively entertained by our take. I promise. Look, we have 11 people still watching, and the debate's been over for half an hour, so this is definitely was entertaining.
Yeah.
Guys, I gotta thank both of you, man. So fun. Russ, I love doing these podcasts with you. Dan, you just add so much, man. Love having you on here. This was terrific. And thank you guys, everybody who watched. Such a great conversation, coming over the wire. You gave us a lot to work with. So thank you guys.
Yeah. Much appreciated.
Fun stuff. Thanks, you guys.